Chapter 158. The two-headed demon wolf was furious. If that 100-year spiritual item was still there, it could take advantage of the third spirit chi awakening to consume that 100-year spiritual item and reach the spirit vessel realm. A spirit vessel realm monster was the king of monsters. No, at that time, it would no longer be a monster, but a legendary demon. Who? The two-headed demon wolf was unable to restrain its anger. It pounced over, wanting to tear Jiang Xi to shreds. Jiang Xi snorted and swung his killing shadow sword, causing a sword beam to appear. Last time, he had almost died in the mouth of the two-headed demon wolf. Now, he had to get back at it. Shio. Jiang Xi used his body to lead the sword, using the wind shadow step to the extreme. With the speed of his movement technique, the long sword seemed to pierce through the air, bringing along a strong shockwave as it crossed 1,000 meters in an instant. Dang! The long sword and the two-headed demon wolf's sturdy claws collided, causing sparks to fly. Who? At the same time, one of the two-headed demon wolf's huge heads opened its bloody mouth, biting towards Jiang Xi with its sharp fangs. Wishful thinking. Jiang Xi's heart was as calm as still water. With a light tap of his feet, his figure flickered as he dodged to the side. The great circle of Unity Realm Wind Shadow Step was like the wind, perfectly dodging. Kill. Jiang Xi made full use of his agility, surrounding the two-headed demon wolf and continuously attacking. His fast sword was also displayed to the extreme. Kai Kai. The sharp blade brought along a sword beam as it continuously pierced into the two-headed demon wolf's body. Who? The two-headed demon wolf angrily roared, but it couldn't do anything to Jiang Xi. The strength of both sides had long been reversed. Now, Jiang Xi had the absolute advantage. After attacking over 1,000 times, Jiang Xi coldly shouted, "Slash!" In an instant, he mobilized the mental pressure that he had just condensed a few days ago and covered the sword. The power of the killing shadow sword, which was a spirit weapon, instantly increased by 50%. Seeing that the situation was not good, the two-headed demon wolf turned around to escape. Who? As if cutting through the air, the long sword fell with a strange speed. Suddenly, Jiang Xi caught up with the two-headed demon wolf. Voila! One of the two-headed demonic wolf's large head was directly chopped off by the long sword and the invisible sword aura on the sword. Fresh blood gushed out like a fountain from the wound. Ow! The two-headed demonic wolf howled miserably. It didn't dare to stay any longer and frantically fled. Can you escape? Jiang Xi snorted lightly and sped up, turning into a series of after-images as he caught up with the two-headed demonic wolf. Again, a sword slashed out. The other head also fell to the ground. You have killed a rank A two-headed demon wolf. EXP plus 110, rumble. The headless two-headed demon wolf's enormous body was like a small mountain. It continued to run wildly across the wasteland for a distance before crashing to the ground. It took him less than 3 minutes to kill the two-headed demonic wolf, which was one of the strongest A-class monsters in the world. Haha, good. Zhao Yang and the two A-ranked martial artists from the Zhenyi army were both surprised and delighted. They were shocked by Jiang Xi's strength, but at the same time, they were excited to have such a strong ally. Zhong Mengbei snorted and wildly waved his two large hammers, increasing the power of his attacks. His opponent was the blood-eyed demonic ape. My mental consciousness is clearly more condensed than his, so why is his combat power so much stronger? Zhong Mengbei wasn't convinced and wanted to quickly kill the blood-eyed demonic ape. Both sides were proficient in strength, but the blood-eyed demonic ape was also proficient in defense. It wasn't easy to kill it in a short period of time. On the other side, after Jiang Xi killed the two-headed demonic wolf, his figure flashed and appeared in front of an A-ranked martial artist from the Zhenyi army. This person had just been attacked by 5 monsters and was heavily injured. He was in the most dangerous situation. In front of him was an A-class armored mystic bull. Jiang Xi's help relieved the pressure on him. He smiled gratefully at Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi lightly nodded and cooperated with him to kill the armored mystic bull. From the name, one could tell that this was a monster that was proficient in defense. It was very strong and difficult to kill it. It took a full 10 minutes for Jiangxi to stab his sword into its eye and shatter its brain. You killed an A-class armored mystic bull, experience points plus 110. Following the notification on the panel, the armored mystic bull fell to the ground. Zhao Yang and the rest were shocked again. Was this Jiangxi's strength? No wonder the Genten Buden appointed Jiangxi as the fifth elder. With such strength, no one would object if he said that he was the strongest person below the spirit realm. Zhong Mengbei snorted again. He was a little anxious. Jiangxi had already killed 2 A-class monsters, but he hadn't even killed one. Was he going to admit defeat just like that? Impossible. Unlike Zhong Mengbei, Zhao Yang and the rest were very happy. Out of the 5 monsters, 2 had already been killed by Jiangxi. The remaining 3 weren't that difficult. Just when they thought that victory was in their hands. Suddenly, a giant bird flew out from the depths of the clouds under the moonlight in the distance. It was as if it wanted to block out the moonlight. Its bare wings were more than 100 meters wide when they were spread out. Caw caw, the giant bird let out an ear-piercing screech and flew toward the Genie army. It was extremely fast. In just 10 seconds, it had flown dozens of kilometers. Oh no! Zhao Yang exclaimed. In the direction the giant bird was flying, a Northern Mountain Army transport plane was streaking across the sky and rapidly approaching the Genie army. It was the martial artists who had just arrived from Pakistan province. The giant bird was ferocious and its aura was even stronger than the 2-headed demonic wolf. Once it collided with the transport plane, the martial artists who had come to help would be in danger. I'll leave this to you. Jiangxi did not even think and chased in that direction. It's over. Zhao Yang's face was ashen. Both the giant bird and the transport plane were in the air. Jiangxi could not fly. No matter how strong he was, what was the use of him going there? These martial artists who had come to help were the elites of the martial arts world in Pakistan province. If all of them died here, the North Mountains prefecture would suffer a huge blow, and they might not be able to recover from it. I'm going to be a sinner. Zhao Yang's heart was filled with bitterness. Ever since the third awakening of spiritual energy, the monsters in Yi Mountain and Ruin 09 had been restless for more than a month. There was a hidden danger. That was why he and Fang Yu, the commander of the Genie army, had planned to detonate the hidden danger and let the monsters attack in advance. They had wanted to use the opportunity when Jiangxi returned to Pakistan province to gather the strength of the martial arts world in Pakistan province. With the help of the Northern Mountain Army and the Genie army, they could eliminate most of the monsters in one fell swoop. However, man proposes, God disposes. Who would have thought that such a huge A-class flying monster was hiding in the depths of Yi Mountain? Humans could not fly, but giant birds could fly. If they were of the same level, it was obvious that this giant bird had the upper hand. At the same time, Jiangxi, who was sprinting on the ground, crossed nearly 5,000 meters with each step. He was as fast as lightning and caught up with the giant bird in the air. Rise! Suddenly, Jiangxi shouted. Zhao Yang and the others were attracted to him. They saw Jiangxi stomping on the ground. The explosive force caused the ground around him to sink nearly a meter. Jiangxi used this force to leap into the air and reached a height of more than 1,000 meters. Then, they saw something that shocked them. Jiangxi's footsteps created a strong wind as he sprinted in the air and quickly approached the giant bird. He was flying. When Zhao Yang, Zhong Mengbei, and the others saw this, they were shocked and then overjoyed. They were saved. Chapter 159. Jiangxi's mood was not relaxed. Instead, it was very dignified. Because he could only walk in the air for 10 seconds, time was limited. As long as I can stop the giant bird and let the transport plane land. Jiangxi was very calm and knew what he had to do. The transport plane had just decelerated and landed. At this time, it was impossible to pick up the speed again. If he didn't stop the giant bird, the transport plane would be torn apart by the giant bird in the air. On that transport plane, there were his friends and many other people he had just met at the dinner party. There was no room for failure. Jiangxi stepped on the mysterious footwork of the wind shadow step. His speed was extremely fast, and a burst of wind circled under his feet. Using the wind to travel, His speed in the air was not much slower than on the ground. Quack! The giant bird found Jiang Ci chasing behind it, but it ignored him and continued to rush to the transport plane that was circling to escape. 3 seconds. Jiang Ci caught up with the giant bird. In the air, it was like walking on flat ground. With the help of the wind, he stabbed his sword. Whoosh! The giant bird's wide fleshy wings swept towards riverward. Jiang Ci was not afraid and increased the speed and strength of his sword. Whoosh! The sword shadow danced wildly, and hundreds of holes were instantly pierced on the giant bird's wing. Quack! The giant bird's voice changed. It was angry and suddenly stopped in the air and turned to pounce on Jiang Ci. The giant beak opened and made a sharp whistling sound, shaking the air, making people who heard it dizzy. There is also spiritual pressure. This giant bird is about to reach the spirit accumulation stage. Jiang Ci was shocked. The giant bird's realm was almost the same as his. I can't fight in the air, I can only fight. Jiang Ci's mind turned sharply, adjusting his fighting style, using speed and flexibility, constantly circling the giant bird. Quack! The giant bird screamed angrily, and its wings of more than 100 meters rolled up a gust of wind. However, it did not expect that these strong winds would provide sufficient wind power for Jiang Ci to fly through the air. With Jiang Ci's current ability to fly, he could only stay in the air for 10 seconds at most before falling down due to the lack of support. Now that there was sufficient wind power, Jiang Ci was naturally pleasantly surprised, and the fight became even more smooth. Wind shadow step, like the wind and shadow. With the wind, it was as if the heavens were helping. Haha! Jiang Ci laughed heartily. It was as if he could really fly in the air. His figure kept flashing in the sky. He had actually gained the upper hand in an instant. As for the transport plane, it had taken the opportunity to safely land in the Zhenyi army camp town. At this moment, everyone was shocked to see Jiang Ci running in the air like a mythical figure. This is Jiang Ci's strength. Zhongmeng Beiyaro looked at the unbelievable scene and felt a sense of powerlessness. He felt that he had chosen the wrong competitor. Both sides were not on the same level at all. When he was still running on the ground, Jiang Ci could already fly. Gah! Gah! The giant bird roared angrily, and the wind suddenly flashed. Its ferocity was monstrous, but it couldn't do anything to Jiang Ci. This was because Jiang Ci's speed in the air was even faster and more agile than it. The slaughtering shadow sword, which was a spirit weapon, left wounds on its body. A large amount of blood sprinkled down from the sky like raindrops. Soon, the giant bird was afraid. It stirred up a gust of wind and wanted to fly away. It didn't dare to continue fighting. You want to leave after showing off? Jiang Ci snorted coldly and followed the wind created by the giant bird. He continuously stepped on the wind shadow step. Like a shadow. The giant bird couldn't escape. Poochie, Poochie. A large piece of the giant bird's huge wings was cut off by the spirit weapon-killing shadow sword. Its speed was affected. If this continued, it would be killed by Jiang Ci in a moment. Roar! It let out a long cry and stretched its neck to roar. Its extremely penetrating voice spread for dozens of kilometers. A deathbed struggle. Jiang Ci was very calm. At most, he could kill this giant bird with 3 sword strikes. He was about to swing his sword. Suddenly, the world changed color. Dark clouds quickly gathered in the originally clear night sky. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Roar! A terrifying demon-like figure rose from the distant Yi mountain. Its roar was like thunder, resounding through the world. Under the cover of the dark clouds, the terrifying figure couldn't be seen clearly. Accompanied by lightning and thunder, the dark clouds surged wildly. The figure soared into the sky as if it was roaming the world. In an instant, it flew above the Zhenyi army. Roar! A black breath similar to spirit energy shot out from the dark clouds and attacked Jiang Ci. Danger! Jiang Ci was shocked. He only felt a stabbing pain all over his body. His sharp spirit perception told him that this was a life and death crisis. If he was hit by this energy breath, he might be directly melted and not even his bones would be left. Jiang Ci didn't even think. He used the wind shadow step and turned to run. However, The speed of the energy breath was too fast. It was far faster than his speed. The terrifying figure hidden in the dark clouds gave him the feeling that it was second only to the tiger skeleton that Xian Tian killed in the battle of the Tongtian Mountain. In other words, it had the strength to crush him. Damn it! Why can't I remember? Jiang Xi scolded himself in his heart. In fact, Jiang Xi couldn't be blamed. Who knew that such a terrifying existence was hidden in the depths of Yi Mountain? Dragon Python, how dare you! At the critical moment, there was a sudden roar. At the same time, a shocking saber shadow slashed wildly from afar. In just an instant, it collided with the energy breath that was chasing Jiang Xi. Boom! The terrifying energy exploded in the air, setting off waves of air. Good chance. Jiang Xi used the force of the explosion to fly down and return to the ground. Then, he turned around and observed the sudden change. A young man with a cold face walked over from afar, covering 10,000 meters with each step. He exuded a powerful aura. He held a spiritual weapon in his hand and pointed at the dark clouds in the sky. Dragon Python, you violated the agreement, the young man said coldly. Boom! Thunder rumbled and the dark clouds quickly dissipated. On the ground, everyone was shocked. They saw a huge python with wings on its back and black scales on its body. It hovered in the air and looked down at the ground. What was even more shocking was that this python had a single horn on its head that shot towards the sky. The young man's words also revealed its identity, Dragon Python, a legendary creature. Roar! The dragon python roared at the young man. I don't care what you said. No matter who started this war, based on our agreement, no one above Class A, regardless of whether they're humans or monsters, is allowed to interfere in the war between humans and monster. The cold young man did not back down. He could actually understand the dragon python's meaning. Roar! The dragon python roared again. You didn't look after your child. How can you blame us human warriors? Besides, your child isn't dead. The young man sneered. The dragon python's child? Jiang Xi glanced at the giant bird that was almost killed by him. It was in a sorry state with a large piece of its wings cut off. It looked somewhat similar to the dragon python. Bird? Dragon python? A cross-species transaction. Monsters were indeed powerful. Chapter 160. Roar. The young man's words enraged the dragon python. If you don't retreat, don't blame me for being rude, the young man shouted coldly. A layer of pure spiritual energy instantly covered his long saber. Roar. The dragon python roared at the sky. This roar was filled with anger and unwillingness. Even River Word could hear it. The dark clouds gathered again. The dragon python rolled up the dark clouds and flew towards Yi Mountain with the scarred giant bird. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the mountains shrouded in clouds. As the dragon python and the giant bird retreated, the beast horde that was besieging the Yi army also began to retreat. The scene of the beasts fleeing in a frenzy was spectacular. Monsters above Class C already had spirituality and were quite intelligent. They sensed great danger and wanted to escape. The young man waved his saber and slashed dozens of times. The shocking saber shadows landed in the midst of the beast horde and exploded. Tens of thousands of beasts were instantly blown to pieces. Roar. The dragon python's roar could be heard from the depths of Yi Mountain. I'm just collecting some interest. The young man sheathed his saber elegantly. Fuck. Jiang Xi was envious. If he had this skill, he could slash dozens of times and his experience points would skyrocket. Then, he became curious. Who was this young man? It seemed that his skills and strength were not much inferior to Shen Tian and Li Baibai. At this time, Zhao Yang and the others returned from the distant wilderness. In the end, Zhong Mengbei killed the blood-eyed demonic ape. The remaining two had escaped because of the unforeseen event. Greetings, Senior Qin, Zhao Yang, Zhong Mengbei, Fang Yu, He Chongxing, Chen Yuan, and a few other Class A martial artists who had rushed over from Pakistan province came over to salute the young man. Millimeter, you did well. The young man nodded lightly. Zhao Yang and the others were like primary school students who had been praised by their teacher. They were overjoyed and quickly said, "Thank you for the praise, Senior Qin. Are you Jiang Ci?" The young man with the surname Qin turned his gaze towards Jiang Ci. Jiang Ci greets Senior Qin. Jiang Ci also bowed respectfully. "Are you willing to join my Qin clan?" The young man surnamed Qin suddenly asked. Jiang Ci was stunned. So direct. "Senior, I have already joined Gen 10 Buden. It doesn't matter. I have a granddaughter who is about the same age as you. Her beauty is unparalleled in Shuntian Prefecture. I can marry her to you and let her join my Qin family through marriage." Xian Tian won't say anything. "Senior, that's not a good idea. A forcibly picked melon is not sweet. Whether the melon is sweet or not has nothing to do with how it was picked." What a reasonable explanation. Jiang Ci remained silent, expressing his refusal. "Humph." The young man with the surname Qin snorted and disappeared in a flash. Those A-rank martial artists all revealed looks of pity, feeling pity for Jiang Ci's rejection. "Jiang Ci, your rejection was too direct. Senior Qin's granddaughter is Sai." Zhao Yang sighed. "Who is Senior Qin?" Jiang Ci asked, puzzled. He Chongqing smiled and explained, "Senior Qin's name is Qin Qi. He comes from the Qin clan of Shuntian Prefecture. He is one of the top 10 martial artists in the world and is in charge of guarding Yi Mountain." Jiang Ci's expression was indifferent. Wasn't that Qin Feng's senior? The Qin clan had such a domineering expert like Qin Qi. How could they have taught a junior like Qin Feng who had a mental problem? Everyone still felt pity for Jiang Ci. However, when they saw that Jiang Ci did not want to talk about this matter, they could only let it go and disperse. Jiang Ci's shocking performance of easily killing the A-rank monster and flying in the air had shocked them no less than Qin Qi's. They did not dare to say anything to Jiang Ci, afraid that they would make Jiang Ci unhappy. Of course, Jiang Ci was not so narrow-minded. He just did not like to decide a person's feelings with a few words. Moreover, he was very loyal to one woman, Jiang Ci. "These are the monster materials from the two-headed demon wolf and the armored mystic bull. I've brought them back for you." Zhao Yang did not leave. He handed a large backpack to Jiang Ci. "Thank you, Commander Zhao." Jiang Ci smiled. This could be considered a bonus. The value of an A-rank monster's materials started from 10 billion. The two-headed demon wolf he had just killed was worth at least 50 billion new moon coins. However, to him, this was already considered a small amount of money. Any one of the few spiritual items he had obtained from Tongtian Mountain was worth thousands or even trillions. A 1,000-year-old spiritual item could not be measured by its price. In Jiang Ci's opinion, money was secondary. The biggest gain from this support was that he had a deeper understanding of this world. Monster. Qin Qi had mentioned this word just now. This world is getting more and more interesting. Jiang Ci looked at Mount Yi. Then, Jiang Ci began to reflect. This time, he had really been a little reckless. If Qin Qi had not appeared in time, he would have been melted by that fatal energy breath. This world was very mysterious. It was hard to say where fatal dangers were hidden. Except this time, he recalled that he had fled in panic along the Shin'an River when he had come to ruin number 09 last year. Downstream, he had almost been sucked into a terrifying whirlpool at the bottom of the river. Now that he thought about it, the existence in the whirlpool gave him a feeling that was very similar to the dragon python. Be careful. Be careful. Be more careful. Jiang Ci warned himself again and again in his heart. The crisis of the Zhenyi army suddenly ended because of the appearance of Qin Qi and the dragon python. Originally, because of the third recovery of spiritual energy, the overall strength of the monsters in Mount Yi and Ruin number 09 had increased by a level, bringing a great crisis to the Da Xia kingdom and the Zhenyi army. However, in this battle, they had suffered heavy losses. Especially the death of the two-headed demonic wolf, the armored mystic bull, and the blood-eyed demonic ape. The death of the 3 Class A monsters had caused their overall strength to decrease by a lot. The hidden crisis caused by the third awakening of spiritual qi was thus resolved. The warriors who had rushed over from Pakistan province to provide support also embarked on their return journey. No matter what, What had happened this moonlit night, Jiang Xi's flight, Qin Chi's domineering attack, and the mysterious dragon python was etched in everyone's mind. It was deeply engraved in everyone's minds. After this battle, no one doubted Jiang Xi's strength anymore. The fifth elder of Genten Buden was indeed powerful. There were even more warriors and forces who wanted to befriend Jiang Xi. However, after returning to Pakistan province, Jiang Xi cut off all contact and focused on cultivation. Even if these people wanted to befriend him, they could not find a way. His recent experiences made River Word feel very anxious in his heart. This was because after the third recovery of spiritual energy, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth had increased greatly. In the future, there would definitely be more and more Spirit Yun stage warriors. He had to reach the Spirit Yun stage as soon as possible. Next, he put all his energy into the Zheni technique and visualization cultivation. It was worth mentioning that Jiang Xi had a deeper understanding of the Zheni technique in the battle with the giant bird in the air. Therefore, the improvement of the Zheni technique was very fast. Chapter 161. After returning from Yi Mountain, Jiang Xi only took a week to increase the time he could fly from 10 seconds to 20 seconds. Then, it took another month to increase it to 25 seconds. 3 months later, at the end of the 93rd year of the new moon era, this time became 30 seconds. Although the increase was getting smaller and smaller, the time he could fly was getting longer and longer. In a battle between experts, the outcome could often be decided in 1 or 2 seconds. In 30 seconds, he could do a lot of things in the air. In the future, when he fought with others, whether it was to fight or escape, he would have room to choose. At the same time, the progress of visualization cultivation also made Jiang Xi quite satisfied. At first, he could only clearly visualize a palm. Now, he could visualize himself in his mind. Except for the head, which was still blurry, everything below the neck had become extremely clear. The changes brought by this kind of improvement were also very obvious. He was much stronger than he was 3 months ago. If he faced that giant bird again, Jiang Xi was confident that he could easily kill it. Because his spiritual consciousness was already extremely condensed, and he was only 1 step away from condensing spiritual consciousness. He even couldn't control the skyrocketing spiritual pressure. Because of this, Jiang Dudu had complained many times recently, saying that Jiang Xi was always suppressing her. New Moon Era 94, January 1st, the Spring Festival of Dacia Kingdom. At the beginning of the new spring, everything was renewed. Pakistan province was bustling with noise and excitement. Jiang Xi and Jiang Dudu wandered aimlessly in the city. From New Moon Era 92 to 94, their lives had undergone earth-shaking changes. In the past, when they lived in the so-called slum, Apricot Garden of Lumming district, the two of them would definitely not come out at night. Because in this era, even in the city, it was not safe at night. Now, it didn't matter. Jiang Xi was only 1 step away from becoming a martial artist of the spirit accumulation stage, and was about to stand at the peak of human martial arts. Jiang Dudu was also a sea-level martial artist. In terms of strength, she was definitely ranked in the top 1,000 in the martial arts world of Pakistan province. If there was anyone who dared to be presumptuous in front of them, they would definitely beat him up until his parents couldn't recognize him. The sun rose and the moon set. The two of them walked from midnight to dawn. It would be great if we could continue like this. Jiang Dudu raised her hand and looked at the dazzling morning sun on the horizon. What nonsense are you talking about? We can definitely go on forever. Jiang Xi rubbed her head. You said it. Pinky swear. H, a child's game. I am a child. A 15-year-old child. Although Jiang Xi said so, he stretched out his little finger and hooked it with Jiang Dudu's cold little finger. Pinky swear, 100 years, 10,000 years. No, never change. Jiang Dudu said with a smile. Never change. The two of them pressed their thumbs together. Laughter echoed through the streets. After returning to Villa number 92 in Tongtian district, Jiang Xi received a message. The sender and the content of the message surprised him. The sender was Shen Tian. The content of the message was, the entrance to the heavenly lake in the Jade Lake secret realm has been discovered. Get ready to meet at the headquarters on January 5th. Jiang Xi turned off the communication and fell into deep thought. This news was somewhat out of his expectations. Because when the Heavenly Lake in the Jade Lake Secret Realm was discovered, the A-level martial artists all tacitly agreed that this opportunity belonged to Shen Tian and other spirit-gathering stage martial artists. The A-level martial artists were not qualified to compete for it. Jiang Xi also thought so at that time. He didn't expect that Shen Tian would inform him. Did Shen Tian really discover that the Heavenly Lake has an inexplicable attraction to me? Jiang Xi shook his head gently again. It was useless to think too much. He just had to go. Moreover, he also wanted to find out what the inexplicable attraction was. Then, he told Jiang Dudu about it. Jiang Dudu surprisingly didn't have any big reaction. She just smiled and said, "Then come back early. You promised me that you can't leave for so long again. Don't worry, I'll be back soon." Jiang Xi patted his chest and made a promise again. New Moon Era 94, January 5th. The weather was gloomy and there was no wind. Jiang Xi carried a long sword on his back and was fully armed. He waved goodbye to Jiang Dudu and stepped on the transport plane. This transport plane was assigned to him by Zhenten Buden when he became the fifth elder. It was a personal plane and had been parked in the square of Zhenten Buden in Pak-Sen province. The black transport plane whistled into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jiang Dudu watched the transport plane leave. She looked at the empty sky for a long time before she turned around and went home. Then, she cultivated in the underground training room of Villa 92. When Jiang Xi returned from the training camp, he prepared a full set of high-level martial arts secret manuals for her. There was a method of drawing qi, offensive martial arts, and movement martial arts. In addition to these, there was also a B-level and A-level spirit medicine. These things were enough to support her cultivation until she reached A-level. On the other side, Jiang Xi's transport plane arrived at the Zhenten Buden headquarters in just over half an hour. Shen Tian and White Cloud were already waiting there. When the two saw Jiang Xi, their eyes lit up and they looked a little surprised. They were both spirit nurture martial artists and had spiritual senses. They were still far away, but they could acutely sense the spiritual pressure emitted from Jiang Xi's body. "Jiang Xi, have you succeeded in your visualization?" Shen Tian asked directly. "Only succeeded in my visualization. I'm still a little short of condensing my spiritual sense." Jiang Xi nodded. "A little short? I think you're just a step away. You're really abnormal. Back then, I had to visualize for 3 years to condense my spiritual sense." White Cloud shook her head. "Maybe I'm just lucky." Jiang Xi smiled. "Looking at things or looking at yourself?" Shen Tian suddenly asked. Jiang Xi didn't hide and smiled. "Looking at myself, I'm just short of my head." "Haha, White Cloud is right. You're really abnormal." Shen Tian laughed. Jiang Xi smiled helplessly. It felt like the two of them were scolding him. Then, the three of them took the transport plane again and set off for Kunlun's Death Valley. On the transport plane, Jiang Xi asked the question in his heart, "Chief, I haven't reached the spirit nurture stage yet. Am I qualified to go to the Sky Lake?" Shen Tian and White Cloud looked at each other and smiled. Then, Shen Tian explained the reason. "Do you still remember the origin of the Wind Shadow Step?" Shen Tian asked. "Wind Shadow Step?" Of course, Jiang Xi remembered. It was from last year. At that time, he had just signed a genius contract with Zhenten Buden of Pak-Sen province. After he became a martial artist, he went to Shen Tian's store to buy secret manuals. First, he used the free quota to choose the 9 elemental sword technique. When he went to choose an advanced movement technique, he was dissuaded by the high numbers. Just as he was about to take a step back and choose the beginner and intermediate movement techniques, he didn't expect that the Shen Tian store would automatically pop up an advanced movement technique at a super low price. It was the Wind Shadow Step. Jiang Xi clearly remembered that under the introduction of the technique, there was a reminder. A powerhouse obtained it from the ancient mystic realm. It was known as the most difficult technique to learn. So far, only 3 people have mastered it. The wind shadow step came from the Jade Lake mystic realm? Jiang Xi looked at Shen Tian in surprise. Chapter 162. That's right. When we discovered Ling Wan Road and Wondrous Stone Mountain, there was actually a nameless ancient book placed on the 9th step of Ling Wan Road. After I comprehended its contents, I named it Wind Shadow Steps. Later, when you were shopping for secret manuals in Shen Tian's store, I happened to be online, so I added Wind Shadow Steps to it. The price of 30 million is really cheap for you, Shen Tian said with a smile. Jiang Xi was suddenly enlightened. The doubts hidden in his heart were finally solved. No wonder such a profound movement technique like Wind Shadow Steps was only sold for 30 million. Jiang Xi also understood the reason why Shen Tian sold the secret manual to him at such a low price. It must be because of his perfect martial arts talent. Sure enough, Shen Tian said with a smile, I wrote in the reminder that only 3 people have entered the entry level. It's not an exaggeration. Before you, only Li Bai, He Tu, and I have reached the entry level. But after that, it was very difficult to improve, so we gave up. In fact, I taught you Wind Shadow Steps just to try it out. I didn't expect your talent to be so abnormal. In just 1 year, you've practiced Wind Shadow Steps to perfection. Now, you should understand why I brought you there, right? Shen Tian's eyes were meaningful. It was the same as the last time at the top of Mount Tongtian. Jiang Xi nodded slightly. Mount Tongtian was the core of Jade Lake Secret Realm. Ling Wan Road was discovered at the top of Mount Tongtian, and Wind Shadow Steps was placed on the 9th step of Ling Wan Road. In this case, the importance of Wind Shadow Steps was self-evident. After he mastered Wind Shadow Steps, he had an inexplicable connection with Jade Lake Secret Realm. Now that he thought about it, there were actually signs before except for the inexplicable attraction from the lake in the sky. When he went to Jade Lake Secret Realm last time, the lightning at the lower half of Mount Tongtian was so dense, but strangely, it didn't fall on him. In addition, when he defeated Feng Xian, Sam, and the others at the top of the mountain to collect the remaining 3 spiritual items, he encountered the 5 skeletal undead creatures blocking his way. Just as he was about to attack, the 5 undead creatures strangely retreated. In these 2 scenes, he used the Wind Shadow Step with all his strength. Wind Shadow Step. Jade Lake Secret Realm. Jiang Xi muttered to himself. Now that he knew the origin of the Wind Shadow Step, he was even more curious about the Jade Lake Secret Realm. After the transport plane landed at the edge of Death Valley, the 3 of them directly entered the Jade Lake Secret Realm through the mysterious teleportation power in the mist barrier. 15 minutes later, the 3 of them arrived at the peak of the Heavenly Mountain. After the lightning and fog disappeared last time, they never appeared again. Only the lake in the sky, which was 100 times larger than the lake at the top of the mountain, was still reflected in the sky. It was vast and boundless. The surface of the lake was filled with a thick mist, making it look like a celestial pond in the heavens. Within the mist, there seemed to be a lofty pavilion standing on the surface of the lake. Once again, he saw this fairyland-like scene. Jiang Xi was still shocked. At the same time, he had a question in his heart. In such a mythical place, not a single living creature could be seen. There were only skeletal undead. Where did the powerful existence that built this place go? Was it long gone with time? Or did it abandon this place? Jiang Xi shook his head gently. With his current strength, he was not qualified to pursue these questions. At this time, Li Bai, Huang Kuan, and He Tu were already waiting by the lake. This time, only the 6 of them entered the lake in the sky. The entrance is in a stone cave at the bottom of the lake. There is a stone door made of the same material as Ling Wan Road, Huang Kuan said. This underwater exploration was done by the military. Then let's go down now and find out. Shen Tian laughed. Everyone also laughed. Their hearts were filled with anticipation as they jumped into the lake. With Huang Kuan and He Tu leading the way, they swam in the water. With their strength, it would not be a problem for them to stay in the water for 3 days. Jiang Xi observed in the water. As expected, there were no living creatures at the bottom of the lake. It was dead silent. There was not even a single water plant. How could such an environment nurture those 1,000-year-old lotus seeds? The 6 of them moved quickly in the water. After a short while, they arrived at a dark underwater stone cave. Through the night vision device, they could see the environment inside clearly. Surprisingly, the cave was empty and dry. There was not a single drop of water. On the surrounding stone walls, they could vaguely see some vague carvings. In the deepest part, there was an ancient stone door. Above the stone door, there were 2 ancient words that clearly did not belong to this era. The structure of the ancient words was similar to the words on the stone tablet at the foot of Mount Tongtian. As if it was a message conveyed through their spiritual consciousness, the meaning of the 2 ancient words was understood by everyone. Jade Lake. Apart from Huang Kuan and He Tu, they had already seen it. Jiang Xi and the rest were shocked. There was no need to guess anymore. The lake in the sky was the legendary Jade Lake. Xian Tian was the strongest. He took a step forward and pushed the stone door open. Inside the stone door, what entered their eyes was the dark green lake water. Miraculously, this stone door seemed to have a mysterious power that blocked the lake water outside. Not a single drop of water flowed into this stone cave. It was clearly separated. It was truly an uncanny workmanship. Everyone, be careful, Xian Tian said solemnly, then took the lead and stepped into the dark green lake water. Indeed, they had to be careful. In the lake at the top of the mountain, there was a tiger skeleton that could reach the spirit vessel level through body transformation. What kind of danger could be hidden in the famous Jade Lake in front of him? Jiang Xi and the rest also followed Xian Tian and stepped into the Jade Lake. The Jade Lake's lake water was very warm, like a hot spring. It even emitted a faint floral fragrance. No one carefully felt the strange lake water. Instead, they followed the pre-agreement. After entering the Jade Lake, they immediately floated up and swam to the surface. Soon, as they continued to float up, everyone became more and more alarmed. Because the Jade Lake's lake water was also dead silent. There were no living things in it. And they had already floated up 1,000 meters, but they had not reached the surface yet. Suddenly, Jiang Xi's expression changed drastically. He was horrified. The other 5 had the same expression. From the surrounding dark green lake water, crystal white skeletons emerged one after another. The appearance of these skeletons was similar to the tiger skeleton in the lake at the top of the mountain, but they were a size smaller. Correspondingly, their strength was also a level lower. But no matter how weak they were still at the spirit vessel level, and the tiger skeletons that appeared here were densely packed. They did not know how many of them there were. Danger. Everyone used their fastest movement technique. Jiang Xi even used the wind shadow step to the extreme. Swim desperately. Upstream, the waves of the lake water became stronger and stronger. It began to roll, and a whirlpool swept over. Splash. Everyone swam up 1,000 meters again and finally reached the surface. They broke out of the water. On the surface of the water, hazy fog flowed slowly, like a fairyland. One could vaguely see a pavilion hidden in the fog far away. But everyone did not have time to appreciate this beautiful scenery. They immediately stepped on the water and rushed toward the pavilion. Needless to say, that pavilion must be the core of the Jade Lake. Chapter 163. Roar. An earth-shattering tiger roar came from behind. Those tiger skeletons also came to the surface of the water and chased closely. Whoosh, 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 rays of white light shot out from their skeleton-like mouths and attacked the group. Clang, clang, clang. The 6 of them waved their hands to meet the attack and then continued to run wildly, not wanting to fight. Roar. A few larger tiger skeletons caught up to them and pounced on them. Get lost. Xian Tian shouted angrily, and his spiritual sense and spiritual energy condensed on the blade. Heaven and earth spiritual energy gathered and instantly condensed into a 100-meter-long blade shadow. It did not stop. At the same time, a shocking blade intent rose from Xian Tian's body. The blade shadow expanded 10 times again, reaching 1,000 meters long. Boom! He slashed out. A dazzling light appeared, and a large number of tiger skeletons dissipated. Jiang Xi and the others did not have time to exclaim. Because there was still an endless stream of tiger skeletons rushing out of the water. With a clear goal in mind, everyone rushed towards the lofty pavilion. They ran for hundreds of kilometers. They finally arrived in front of the pavilion. A golden plaque hung in the middle of the tall pavilion that pierced through the clouds. The plaque was also written with the same ancient words: heaven-reaching tower, heaven-reaching mountain, heaven-reaching tower. Could it be the sky palace above the jade pool? Jiang Xi subconsciously looked up at the sky. The mist covered the sky and the scene above could not be seen. Go in quickly, Xian Tian's shout came. Behind him, the green water of the jade pool seemed to have turned into a sea of skeletons. The densely packed tiger tribe skeletons pounced over like a tidal wave. How many skeletons were hidden under the water? The door of the heaven-reaching tower was open, and the 6 of them flashed in. The next moment. Boom! Suddenly, the wind and clouds changed. The mist above the jade pool surged endlessly, and waves of black wind appeared from the void like a wind of destruction. The countless tiger tribe skeletons on the surface of the lake were blown away by the black wind and turned into ashes in an instant. And this majestic heaven-reaching tower was like a shelter. Neither the white bone undead nor the black wind of annihilation could get close to this place. Everyone stood in Heavenspan Pavilion, looking back at the apocalyptic scene. The shock in their hearts took a long time to calm down. Riverward's heart thumped wildly, and he was also filled with lingering fear. It was too terrifying. If he was a step slower, he would be gone. White bones like a sea, black wind destroying the world. The black wind swept past and then disappeared without a trace. The jade-green water surface reappeared. It was as if those tiger tribe skeletons had never appeared. This doesn't feel like the legendary celestial pool, but more like a devil's pool. Huang Kuan shook his head and sighed. In front of such an environment, everyone felt exceptionally small. Even if there really are immortals, they must have climbed up step by step from being weak. This is our era, we just need to charge forward. Xian Tian laughed with boundless heroism. That's right, this heaven-reaching pavilion has a profound meaning. Perhaps it's our fortunate encounter. Li Baibai let out a confident smile. Jiang Xi, White Cloud, and He Tu didn't say anything, but their eyes were filled with determination. That's right, this was their era. Everyone turned around and observed the environment in Heavenspan Pavilion. The area was huge, but the scene in front of them was a little strange. Such a tall pavilion, but there were no stairs. There were only 6 dark passageways on the wall facing them. They couldn't see the inside of the passageways. It was as if it was specially prepared for them. The number of passageways was exactly the same as their number. There's a stone tablet over there. Jiang Xi had the habit of observing the environment whenever he arrived at a new place. The moment he entered, he carefully observed the place. He quickly saw a stone tablet erected in a corner far away. They hurriedly walked over. On the stone tablet, there were a few lines of ancient words. After taking a look, the ancient words conveyed the message to their consciousness. Each trial passageway is limited to 1 person at a time. Those who violate the rules, die. Those who destroy the passageways, die. Those who are not of the human race, die. The 3 words die seemed to carry a mental attack, causing Jiang Xi and the rest to feel as if their minds were struck by lightning. They could feel the deterrence hidden in the ancient words. The 6 of them looked at each other and took a deep breath. After calming down, Xian Tian smiled and said, since the trial passageways were left behind by the ancestors of the human race, there must be generous rewards. Haha, I'll go in first. He walked straight to the first trial passageway on the far left. Those who practice martial arts should not fear danger. Li Baibai chose the second trial passageway. Next, Huang Kuan, White Cloud, and He Tu each chose a passageway and entered. Only Jiang Xi and the 6th trial passageway were left. He was the weakest, so he was the last to choose. Phew. I wonder if everyone's trial is the same. Jiang Xi thought to himself. Jiang Xi walked towards the 6th trial passageway. However, at this moment, he stopped in his tracks and looked at the 6 trial passageways in front of him in shock. He saw that the rightmost side of the 6 trial passageways suddenly changed, and the 7th trial passageway appeared out of thin air. This is. Jiang Xi's breathing stagnated, and then became rapid again. The inexplicable attraction that had been lingering in his heart became extremely intense at this moment. The attraction came from the 7th trial passageway. Calm down, calm down. Jiang Xi continued to take deep breaths, and when his emotions had truly calmed down, he walked towards the 7th trial passageway. The closer he got to the passageway, the stronger the inexplicable attraction became. Standing in front of the dark passageway, he could not see what was inside. Since he was already here, Jiang Xi did not hesitate and stepped in. After entering, he finally saw a glimmer of light coming from the end of the passageway. Facing the light, he walked forward. What Jiang Xi did not know was that the moment he stepped into the passageway, the 7th trial passageway disappeared without a trace from Tongtian building, and only the original 6 trial passageways were left. In the darkness, as if he had walked for 10,000 meters, Jiang Xi finally approached the light. Then, his vision suddenly widened. A bright and boundless space appeared in front of Jiang Xi's eyes. Although Tongtian building was majestic and spectacular, it was obviously impossible to fit such a large space. Needless to say, it was definitely another great magical technique. However, this was not what surprised Jiang Xi the most. His gaze was locked on a huge white jade stone staircase in front of him. The staircase was huge. This was a staircase made up of 9 huge stone staircases, and each staircase was nearly 30 meters high. It was incomparably magnificent, as if it was specially prepared for giants. The top of the staircase was covered by the light, and it was unknown where it led to. Trial taker, please accept the inheritance trial. At this moment, a clear female voice sounded in this space. Ling Wan Road. Jiang Xi's eyes widened in shock. This clear female voice was exactly the same as the prompt in Ling Wan Road's illusory realm trial. He suddenly realized that if the staircase in front of him was reduced by 100 times, wouldn't it be Ling Wan Road? The difference was that this larger update in front of him had no traces of erosion by time. Chapter 164. Could it be that this was also Ling Wan Road? Jiang Xi suppressed the shock in his heart and tried to shout, "Excuse me, are there any requirements for the inheritance trial?" No response. At this moment, beside the large Ling Wan Road, a white jade stone tablet appeared from the ground. The ancient words were also engraved on it. Jiang Xi quickly understood and his expression changed. It was even somewhat ugly. Because the inheritance trial's requirements were very deceptive. So this giant stone staircase is also Ling Wan Road, but it belongs to the second section of Ling Wan Road. On the second section of Ling Wan Road, there is a set of cultivation technique manuals called the Wind God Escape. The Wind God Escape is divided into 9 levels and is hidden in the illusory realm trial of the 9 steps. After passing the illusory realm trial, the trial taker can obtain 1 level of the Wind God Escape. However, the Wind God Escape is not the true inheritance of the inheritance trial. The inheritance trial's requirement is for the trial taker to comprehend the true inheritance through the Wind God Escape. The more levels of the Wind God Escape obtained, the easier it is to comprehend. However, the stone tablet did not tell what the true inheritance was. This was not the most deceptive thing. What made Jiang Xi's heart sink was that the inheritance trial had a time limit. Within 10 years, if you don't comprehend the true inheritance, the final result is death. Jiang Xi surveyed his surroundings. The passageway he had just entered had already disappeared. In other words, he had to accept this inheritance trial. 10 years. Before he left this time, he had even promised Jiang Dudu that he would not leave for too long. Let's not talk about whether he could comprehend this inheritance first. Even if he could comprehend it, he would definitely need to spend a certain amount of time. Otherwise, this inheritance trial would not be limited to 10 years. If the worst-case scenario were to fail the trial and fail to comprehend the true inheritance, then only death would await him. Jiang Xi did not doubt the methods of the person who left behind the inheritance trial. The deterrence of the 3 words death on the stone tablet in Heavenly Tower was still imprinted in his mind. How long did the person who comprehended the inheritance the fastest take? Jiang Xi asked again. You can call me the spirit of illusion. Ling Wan Road has been built for countless years. The fastest person to comprehend the inheritance only took 1 year and 3 days. Don't worry, during the inheritance period, I will provide you with a vitality-nurturing pill every day. I guarantee that you won't starve to death. This time, the clear and melodious female voice gave a response, and it even carried some emotion. Spirit of illusion? However, what Jiang Xi was concerned about was not whether he would starve to death. Even the person who comprehended it the fastest took a year. Jiang Xi's expression changed. In such a legendary place, there must have been countless geniuses born in the past. 1 year. Can I comprehend it in 1 year? If the head hall master and the others find that I haven't come out after their trial, they might think that I've died here. There's no way we can keep this a secret. Jiang Dudu will eventually get wind of this. No, I have to get out as soon as possible. Moreover, he had made quite a number of enemies since he embarked on the path of martial arts. If he was trapped here for a long time, some people might take revenge on the people around him. Jiang Xi was extremely anxious. However, he knew that there was no other way. He could only risk his life to pass the inheritance trial. At this time, he did not consider failure. He would not allow himself to fail. Now, he could not waste even a second. The first step is to obtain the wind god escape technique. Jiang Xi took a step forward and stepped onto the first stone step of the second section of Ling Wan Road. He closed his eyes and his consciousness entered the illusory realm for the trial. The second section of Ling Wan Road was slightly different from the first section. The illusory realm trial here did not have a limit on the number of times and time. He could keep trying until he passed. As long as he passed, he would be able to obtain the wind god escape technique. Trial taker, please kill 100 wind demon white tigers. On the grassland of the illusory realm space, 100 ferocious A-class wind demon white tigers appeared. Every one of them was equivalent to an A-class second-tier martial artist kill. Jiang Xi's killing intent was boiling. He instantly unleashed all his strength. Wind Shadow Step. 9 elements sword technique. Accompanied by the earth-shattering roars of the tigers, a torrential storm of attacks was unleashed. Jiang Xi's figure flashed among the group of wind demon white tigers. Kill, kill, kill. His speed completely crushed these wind fiend white tigers. The first stage of the illusory realm trial was surprisingly simple. In less than an hour, he had killed all 100 wind demon white tigers. Congratulations, you have passed the trial. You have obtained the first level of the wind god escape technique. The voice of the illusory realm spirit sounded again. The first level of the wind god escape technique. Where was it? Jiang Xi looked around. Just as he was puzzled, the 100 wind demon white tiger corpses in front of him instantly transformed into streaks of white light and gathered around his body. A large amount of martial arts comprehension appeared in his mind and merged into his memory. It was very profound, as if he had already learned it and was very familiar with it. No. This is obviously the wind shadow step. In his mind, the comprehension of the first level of the wind god escape technique was slightly different from the wind shadow step. The various combinations of footwork were almost exactly the same. Wind shadow step. First level of the wind god escape technique. You have comprehended the first level of the wind god escape technique. Experience points plus 2000. The prompt of the experience panel suddenly sounded, which made Jiang Xi slightly surprised. Something different seemed to have appeared. Comprehension. He quickly opened the experience panel to check. Level. Pulse opening stage A, 259002, 5900, cultivation technique, 9 elements heart technique martial arts 9 elements sword technique, combination, 300, 003, 0000, wind god escape technique, first level, 400, 005, 0000, force exertion, 10 experience points, 240585, as expected, the wind shadow step has become the wind god escape technique. No wonder. Jiang Xi finally confirmed that the inexplicable attraction that had been lingering in his mind was really caused by the wind shadow step. When Xian Tian told him the origin of the wind shadow step, he already had this guess. Now, he was completely sure that the wind shadow step was not only an important item in the sky connecting mountain, but also a part of the legacy trial. However, the first level of the wind god escape technique was not exactly the same as the wind shadow step. There were still some differences. Looking at the experience points, he knew that to fully comprehend the first level of the wind god escape technique, he needed 50,000 experience points, which was 10,000 more than the wind shadow step. Therefore, in the status bar of the wind god escape technique, he still needed 10,000 experience points to fully comprehend the first level. 10,000 experience points, according to my current daily increment of 250 experience points, I need 40 days to fully comprehend it. Just the first level required 40 days, and this was under the condition that he had already comprehended 80% of the wind shadow step. If he did not comprehend the wind shadow step in advance, he would need 200 days to fully comprehend the first level of the wind god escape technique. There were still 8 levels after that. How long would it take? Although Jiang Ci was anxious, he still maintained a sense of calmness. He exited the illusion trial. You have passed the trial of the 10th level of the Ling Wan Road, experience points plus 50,000. This notification from the experience panel surprised Jiang Ci once again. The 10th level of the Ling Wan Road? It seemed that the experience panel had assumed that the first and second levels of the Ling Wan Road were continuous. Chapter 165. The first and second sections of Ling Wan Road were continuous. Although it was surprising, it was not the main point of Jiang Ci's attention. Next, he sat cross-legged on the first step, wanting to comprehend the true inheritance through the first level of wind god escape. After a long time, Jiang Ci opened his eyes helplessly. Because he had gone through the first level of wind god escape in his mind over 100 times, but there was nothing. He did not even comprehend a single hair of the true inheritance. The more levels of wind god escape obtained, the easier it is to comprehend the true inheritance. Only the first level, the probability of comprehending the inheritance is very, very small. Jiang Ci shook his head, jumped up, and stepped on the second step, preparing to obtain the second level of wind god escape. In just half a day, he frowned and exited the illusion trial. The second step of the illusion trial was still the wind demon white tiger, but the speed was faster. He tried for 6 to 7 hours, all of which failed. The speed is still a bit off. Looks like only by fully comprehending the first level of wind god escape will I have a chance to pass the second illusion trial. Jiang Ci's thoughts were clear. From the backpack behind him, he took out 100-year spirit fruit. When he went out this morning, for the sake of caution, he brought all the spirit fruits that he obtained from the Skyspan Mountain last time. 3,000-year spirit fruits, peach, dragon fruit, lotus seed 200-year spirit fruits apricot, dragon mark spirit fruit. The spirit energy provided by 100-year spirit fruit is almost enough for me to consume 30,000 experience points. The last time at the Skyspan Mountain, he had consumed 100-year spirit fruit and had a rough estimate of the spirit energy contained in it. The first level of wind god escape is still 10,000 experience points away. It's too wasteful to use the spirit fruit now. Jiang Ci shook his head gently and kept the fruit. At this time, he noticed that on the huge white jade steps in front of him, a simple and unadorned small tray had appeared at some point in time. There was a small blue pill on it. Jiang Ci's face darkened. This was the essence augmenting pill? Although he was conflicted, he was hungry. There was no choice, he had to eat it. According to the spirit of the illusion, one essence augmenting pill a day would not be hungry. I wonder how it tastes. Jiang Ci picked up the soul nurturing pill and stuffed it into his mouth. The next moment, his eyes lit up. The taste was actually very good. Chicken flavor. However, before he had the time to savor it, a voice suddenly rang out. The soul augmenting pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. Almost instantly, it transformed into a dense spiritual energy that rapidly circulated throughout his body. What a surprise! He had originally thought that the soul-nurturing pill was used to allay his hunger. Unexpectedly, it actually contained a large amount of spiritual energy. This spirit chi energy, is almost equivalent to a C-grade Fey potion. A C-grade Fey potion was priced at $2.8 billion new moon dollars in the Xiantian's shopping center. The spirit of the illusory realm was truly generous. After the pleasant surprise, Jiang Xi hurriedly used the experience panel to level up the first level of the Wind God Escape art. This was because two conditions had to be met in order to use the EXP panel to increase one's strength: experience points and aura energy. Now, he had them all. Wind God's Escape technique increased by 1,000 experience points. After upgrading once, the spiritual energy of the soul-augmenting pill was completely depleted. As expected, it was the amount of a C-grade Fey potion. This discovery allowed Jiang Xi to breathe a sigh of relief. One soul-augmenting pill a day could save him a lot of time. Just like that, 10 days later, he had successfully upgraded the first level of the Wind God Escape art to perfection. In terms of speed, it was 20% faster than when he was in the state of Wind Shadow art. The faster he was, the stronger he was. Then, he went to the second step of the second section of Ling Wan Road, which was the 11th step of Ling Wan Road. This time, he only tried 3 times and passed the illusory realm trial and obtained the second level of the Wind God Escape art. You have comprehended the second level of the Wind God Escape art. Experience points plus 3,000. You have passed the 11th step of Ling Wan Road. Experience points plus 55,000. The experience panel sounded with a pleasant prompt. If it was a normal day, Jiang Xi would definitely be pleasantly surprised. But now, these gains did not bring him any surprise. Because next, he once again used the first 2 levels of the Wind God Escape art to comprehend, but he still did not comprehend a trace of the so-called inheritance. There was no other way, he could only continue to work hard. He could not be trapped here forever, in case others mistakenly thought that he died here. If Jiang Dudu did something stupid because of this, then it would be too late for him to regret. Go, go, go. Jiang Xi used most of his time to comprehend the Wind God Escape art, trying to comprehend the real inheritance. Then, he used the soul-augmenting pill every day to increase the experience of the Wind God Escape art. After this level of the Wind God Escape art was completed, he would go to the next illusory realm trial on Ling Wan Road to obtain the next level of the Wind God Escape art. The rest of the time, he used to visualize and cultivate. Level was the foundation. After breaking through to the spirit-nurturing realm and having spiritual sense, there might be a turning point and he could comprehend the inheritance. Inside Tong Tian building, Xian Tian and the others stood in front of the trial passages. Although they had gained something in the trial, they did not have any happy mood at this moment. Because Jiang Xi had disappeared. It's been a month. Our trial will end in 7 days at most. Jiang Xi, he. White Cloud sighed and shook his head. He didn't finish his words, but the meaning was obvious. Among the 5 of them, Xian Tian took the longest time, a full 7 days. The second was Li Bai, who took 5 days. But they were spirit-nurturing realm martial artists. Relying on the spiritual power in their body, they could go 3 months without eating or drinking. As for level A martial artists, without any food, they would starve to death after a month at most. They had waited here for a whole month, but Jiang Xi had not come out of the 6th trial passage. Li Bai, Huang Kuan, and He Tu, the 3 of them had a complicated expression. They were sad, and regretful. They all attached great importance to Jiang Xi's development and had great hopes for Jiang Xi's future. Some time ago, when Xian Tian proposed to bring Jiang Xi in, they immediately agreed. But they did not expect that Jiang Xi would fall here. Obviously, there was no danger in the trial. You guys go back first. I'll wait here for another month. Xian Tian only said one sentence, then directly sat cross-legged facing the trial passage, closed his eyes, and cultivated. The others sighed and shook their heads as they left. They were important forces in Xia country's martial arts world. Usually, they had their own missions and could not leave for a long time. Otherwise, other countries and forces would take advantage of the situation. As the white bone spirits in the Jade Lake had already been annihilated by the Black Wind, they did not encounter any danger on their return journey. After Li Bai and the others left, Shen Tian opened his eyes. His expression was complicated as he looked at the 6th trial passage. It shouldn't be. I saw that your wind shadow step had reached perfection, so I brought you here. Although this trial will be difficult, it won't be life-threatening. Jiang Ci, what did you encounter? The wind shadow step is closely related to the Jade Lake secret realm. Even if we encounter danger, it won't be your turn. Chapter 166. The trials of the 5 of them were different, but none of them were too difficult. Shen Tian suddenly realized that the trial here was not dangerous for the spirit gathering stage. But for the A-level martial artist, it may be fatal. He shook his head and waited alone for another month. However, there was still no movement. He didn't believe it. He didn't believe that with Jiang Ci's talent, he would fail here. So, he waited for another month. At the end of the 3rd month, Shen Tian sighed and gave up the last bit of persistence in his heart. 3 months without eating or drinking is already the limit of a spirit-gathering stage martial artist. Even with his strength, after meditating here for 3 months, his physical strength has been consumed by more than half. Shen Tian stood up with a wry smile. He didn't know how to tell Jiang Ci's family about this. Jiang Ci seems to only have one younger sister whom he relies on. He left Tongtian Building, but that long sigh still echoed in Tongtian Building. New Moon Year 94, April 15th. Pak Sn Province, Genten Buden Tongtian District, Villa 92. Genten Buden's 2nd Elder Tang He, Pak Sn Province Branch Master Chen Yuan, and Deputy Master Lu Shan. The 3 of them stood in front of the villa's door, hesitating for a while, with a difficult expression. Sigh, let me be the bad guy. Tang He stepped forward and pressed the doorbell. Soon, Jiang Dudu, wearing a training suit, ran out of the villa. After seeing them, she politely invited the 3 of them to the living room. In her view, since Jiang Ci is not at home, she must take on the responsibility of the head of the family. But she didn't expect that such a move would make Tang He and the other 2 feel like they are sitting on pins and needles. Jiang Dudu made tea for them and asked, Uncle Chen, Uncle Lu, who is this senior? Chen Yuan introduced, this is Elder Tang from the dojo's headquarters. Elder Tang from the headquarters? Jiang Dudu's eyes lit up. Then, he hurriedly asked Tang He, Elder Tang, do you know where my brother went? I asked Uncle Chen and Uncle Lu, but they didn't know. Tang He gritted his teeth and did not beat around the bush. His voice was heavy as he said, Miss Jiang, I'm very sorry. According to the tavern master's confirmation, Elder Jiang Ci went missing in a mysterious place. There should be no hope for him to survive. Before he could finish his sentence. Bang! Jiang Dudu threw the teapot to the ground, and the broken glass flew everywhere. Her explosive aura was also very shocking. Go. All of you, leave. My brother can't be dead. I won't allow you to curse my brother. Even if everyone in this world dies, my brother won't die. Jiang Dudu said coldly. Tang He, Chen Yuan, and Lu Shan looked at each other and felt very awkward. They were all A-class warriors, but in front of a little girl like Jiang Dudu, they couldn't raise their temper. They left Jiang Ci's house in a somewhat embarrassing state. The 3 of them stood in the distance of the villa and sighed. Tang He pondered for a moment and said, if I didn't feel wrong, the aura that Miss Jiang released should be the aura of a C-class warrior. You didn't notice it after so long? Chen Yuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. I didn't have much contact with the siblings, so I didn't notice it. Lu Shan sighed, I know them quite well. The feeling that the siblings give me is a bit strange. The 2 of them are like a whole, and it's very difficult for others to interfere in their lives. Moreover, Jiang Ci is cautious by nature and is very guarded against others. I think that he should be the one who asked Jiang Dudu to hide her strength. That's why we didn't notice that Jiang Dudu has actually reached C-class. She has only cultivated for less than a year, and such talent is second only to Jiang Ci. Tang His expression became serious, and he reminded the 2 of them, no matter what, Miss Jiang is Elder Jiang Ci's only relative. We must protect her. Although Elder Jiang Ci hasn't cultivated for long, he has killed many strong people. When he's alive, those enemies may not dare to make a move. However, If news of him getting into trouble spreads, then these people may have some evil thoughts and focus their hatred on Miss Jiang. Therefore, the matter of Elder Jiang Ci must not be spread. It's best to delay it until Jiang Dudu grows up and is able to deal with these dangers. Chen Yuan and Lu Shan both agreed with this point and nodded solemnly. However, they also understood that as the fifth elder of Genten Buden, Jiang Ci was such a prominent figure. If he didn't appear for a long time, people would definitely suspect him. At that time, as long as they probed a little, they would be able to find out how Jiang Ci was doing. Sigh, the three of them sighed again. Jiang Dudu stood in the living room of the villa in a daze and didn't move for a long time. After standing for a day and a night, she walked to the underground training room expressionlessly. She saw the area where Jiang Ci usually sat cross-legged. She walked over and curled up like a baby, wanting to feel the aura left behind by Jiang Ci. However, 3 months had already passed and there was no trace of his aura left. Unknowingly, her tears had covered her small face as she muttered to herself. "Liar, you big liar." Even though she was asleep, she kept repeating this sentence. Tongtian Building, Legacy Trial Space. 3 months had passed and Jiang Ci had already become a burly man with a curly beard. His hair and beard had become very long. He didn't have time to care about his appearance. After all, no one was looking. For such a long time, he had used all his energy to comprehend the wind god's teleportation and visualization cultivation. However, on this day, he didn't comprehend the wind god's teleportation. Instead, he was visualizing cultivation. After 3 months of hard work, his visualization cultivation had finally reached the final critical moment. His visualization cultivation process was to visualize himself, which was many times more difficult than visualizing objects. Because the human body was extremely complex, it was very difficult to visualize it completely in one's mind. Counting the time, it had already been more than half a year since he started visualizing. Now, he only needed a pair of eyes to be able to visualize his complete self in his mind. The eyes could be said to be the most difficult part of the visualization process. Because the eyes were agile and hid a lot of emotions, they could express many emotions. It was not like the nose and mouth, which could be as it should be. He had been stuck at the stage of the eyes for nearly 2 months. Today, he was finally about to break through the transmission of emotions. Jiang Ci sat cross-legged on the huge stone steps, his mind in a state of emptiness. In his mind, his visualization image was already extremely realistic. Only his eyes were empty. Imagine your deepest emotions and express them through your eyes, he slowly visualized and guided. Gradually, the eyes of the visualization image began to appear in his mind. Deep affection, care, doting, protection, worry, all kinds of emotions were clearly expressed through his eyes. At this moment, he was thinking of Jiang Dudu. Buzz. There seemed to be a soft sound in Jiang Ci's mind. The visualization of himself began to glow. Wisps of light gathered in his mind, condensed, and finally became solid. Spiritual consciousness appeared. Chapter 167. Boom. There seemed to be a big explosion in his mind, and the condensed spiritual sense suddenly shone brightly. Finally, it merged with the visualized image. The visualized version of himself seemed to have a life of its own. It was extremely agile. At the same time, Jiang Ci felt that his whole person had been sublimated. He felt that he was closer to this world, and he could clearly perceive the slowly flowing spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Refined spiritual energy. Jiang Ci grabbed a 100-year-old spiritual fruit that had already been prepared next to him and swallowed it directly. The rich spiritual energy quickly flowed throughout his body. His current physical fitness was completely able to withstand such a huge amount of energy. 5 elements meditation deed, refine. Jiang Ci ran the spirit gathering stage technique that he had already memorized and quickly refined the spiritual energy. In just a few breaths, the first spiritual energy appeared in his body. The experience value panel has been updated, please check it in time. A melodious voice rang out in his mind. Jiang Ci was very surprised and quickly opened the experience value panel. Cultivation. Spirit gathering, early stage 152800, cultivation method. 5 elements meditation deed, peacock visualization martial arts, 9 elements sword art, combination 300, 003, 0000, wind god escape, 3rd level 300006000, amplitude, 1 deduction, 10,000 experience points per time experience value, 319585, amplitude, is spiritual energy amplitude. 1 time spiritual energy amplitude equals 10 times force, deduction, can deduce. New martial arts and Taoist techniques according to existing martial arts and Taoist techniques. The success rate of deduction is determined by the grade and completeness of martial arts and Taoist techniques. The panel was very considerate to explain the new function for Jiang Ci. The force had changed, and it was updated to spiritual energy amplitude. The level had also changed, and it was updated to cultivation. Of course, these were not the main point. The main point was that he could finally use the experience value panel to improve his cultivation. Increase 3,000 cultivation experience points. Increase 3,000 cultivation experience points. In this way, after repeating 9 times, the spiritual energy in Jiang Ci's body was quickly refined. At the same time, a total of 27,000 experience points were consumed. What he got in return was a powerful spiritual energy flowing through his body, the foundation of a spirit-gathering stage martial artist's strength, spiritual sense, spiritual energy. Now, he had everything. Cultivation base, spirit nurture, early stage 270, 015, 2800. Jiang Ci carefully sensed the increase in his cultivation base and shook his head, giving up on the idea of increasing it further. I've raised my cultivation too much in one go, causing me to find it a little difficult to control my current cultivation. I can't raise my cultivation any further. He needed to stabilize his realm and polish it carefully before he could continue to improve. A stable foundation was truly stable. Now, let's see if I can comprehend the true inheritance with my spiritual sense. Next, Jiang Ci began to comprehend the first 3 levels of the wind god escape technique in his mind, trying to comprehend the inheritance mentioned by the spirit of illusion. Half a day later, the results were disappointing. Even after gaining spiritual awareness, he still didn't gain anything. Jiang Ci opened his eyes and heaved a long sigh. He understood that the main reason should be that the wind god escape technique wasn't complete enough, lacking too much. In the past 3 months, he had passed the 10th, 11th, and 12th steps of the illusion trial of Ling Wn Road and collected the first 3 levels of the wind god escape technique. According to the spirit of illusion, the more complete the wind god escape technique was, the higher the possibility of successfully comprehending the inheritance. But, it's been 3 months. Jiang Ci even felt some despair in his heart. This despair wasn't because he doubted whether he could comprehend the true inheritance. But he was worried that Jiang Dudu would have an accident because of the news of his disappearance. In this world, the two of them depended on each other. After so many years, they couldn't leave each other. No, I can't despair. Jiang Ci shook his head hard, and his expression became firm again. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. Right, deduction. He remembered that when the panel was updated, there was a new function, deduction. He opened the panel and sure enough, there was this item. Deduction, 10,000 experience points per time. There was another prompt below. You can deduce new martial arts techniques and Taoist techniques based on existing martial arts techniques and Taoist techniques. The success rate of deduction is determined by the level and completeness of the martial arts techniques and Taoist techniques. Jiang Ci's eyes became brighter and brighter, and he instantly thought of something. The experience points panel mentioned Taoist techniques. The true inheritance, could it be that I can deduce some kind of Taoist technique through the wind god escape technique? It was very possible. This inheritance trial was so grand. If the true inheritance was just a martial arts technique, it would be too low-end and not in line with the grand style of the Jade Lake Secret Realm. Then, Jiang Ci began to try the deduction function and said in his heart, deduction with wind god escape technique once. He seemed to have comprehended the first 3 levels of the wind god escape technique countless times in an instant. The next moment, the prompt of the experience points panel sounded sad smiley deduction failed. Jiang Ci didn't give up and repeated the deduction again. Deduction failed, Deduction failed. After trying 3 times in a row, Jiang Xi's face was a little gloomy. His heart ached because he had consumed 30,000 experience points in an instant. He looked at the experience points remaining. Sad smiley experience points, 289585. Originally, he thought that after his experience points exceeded 100,000, he would be able to create as much as he wanted. Now, he found that these experience points were simply not enough. If he really wanted to deduce, these experience points wouldn't even last for 30 seconds. It's still the problem that Wind God escape technique is not complete enough, so the deduction success rate is too low. Continue to challenge Ling Wn Road and obtain the follow-up Wind God escape technique. Jiang Xi understood what to do next. However, before that, he had to first upgrade the 3rd level of Wind God escape technique to perfection and increase his speed again. Otherwise, the possibility of passing the next stage of the illusion trial was very small. Wind God escape technique, 3rd level, 300,006,0000. Next, he took another spiritual fruit. With the help of a large amount of spiritual energy, through the experience points panel, the 3rd level of Wind God escape technique was raised to 57,000 experience points. He was only 3,000 points away from perfection. The rest was also simple. 1 energy-enhancing pill a day could help him increase 1,000 experience points. Just like that, 3 days later, the 3rd level of Wind God escape technique reached perfection, and his speed increased by another 20%. Jiang Xi's strength was focused on speed. If his speed was fast, his sword would be faster, and his strength would be stronger. This time, he only tried twice in the illusion trial on the 13th step of Ling Wn Road and successfully passed it, obtaining the 4th level of Wind God escape technique. Then, he used the first 4 levels of Wind God escape technique and tried to deduce it again. However, after trying 3 times, he still failed. Jiang Xi's face was dark and he did not deduce anymore. Because in this inheritance space, the fastest way to obtain experience points was to challenge Ling Wan Road. The problem was that the number of experience points obtained in each illusion trial on Ling Wan Road was limited to 1 time. Therefore, the experience points could not be used carelessly anymore. It's best to get all 9 levels of Wind God escape technique before deducing. This way, the risk is the least. Jiang Xi thought about this decision with the most cautious attitude. Although he was anxious to go out, he told himself not to panic. Once he made a wrong decision, if he failed to successfully comprehend the true inheritance in the end, then it would be too late for regrets. Chapter 168. Jiang Xi had not appeared in front of the public for half a year. In the beginning, many people thought that he was cultivating in seclusion. However, as time went by, some people started to have doubts. Especially some martial art organizations with strong intelligence. Through some clues, such as whether some of Jiang Xi's friends behaved abnormally, they came to a conclusion. In the end, they concluded that Jiang Xi might have gone missing. Some people even guessed that Jiang Xi might have died somewhere. This was because Jiang Xi's sister had not smiled in the past half a year. Then, these guesses were spread by some people and quickly spread to the entire martial arts world. Some people became restless because of this. This was because Jiang Xi had killed too many A-class martial artists. Many veteran A-class martial artists had not killed more than a few opponents of the same level for decades. Jiang Xi, on the other hand, had killed 8 of them in the Battle of Mount Tongtian. Nordic City, located north of the Holy Alliance, was a large city independent of the 5 major countries. It was very famous in the new era. The organization of the forces here was very complicated. It was a place where exiled martial artists and vicious people yearned for. At this time, in a classical manner on a snowy mountain in Nordic City, Feng Xian stood in front of the window, overlooking the snowy mountain. He held a glass of red wine and sipped it in satisfaction. Such scenery, such a life. It's indeed leisurely. Compared to here, life in Mingshan Mountain is too depressing. I have to be careful all day and guard against the surveillance of the great Xia kingdom. He seemed to be talking to himself. The leader of the guards, Old Yuan, stood respectfully behind him and did not say anything. Although the scenery here is good, I still miss Mingshan Mountain. After all, I'm from the Great Xia Kingdom. That's my home. Feng Xian's tone was complicated. Then, he gulped down the rest of the red wine. After sighing with emotion, he returned to his usual indifference and asked, "Has the news been spread?" "Almost all the major cities in the world know about it," Old Yuan replied. "What about the Ma family of Chang'an?" "According to your request, I sent the information to Ma Yu's mother." "That's good." Feng Xian nodded slightly, his eyes cold. "Regardless of whether you're dead or not, I can't do it myself. I can only use someone else to avenge my son." It wasn't that he couldn't. In fact, he didn't dare to. The difference in strength between him and Jiang Xi had been reversed. If they were to meet again, Feng Xian believed that he might not be able to withstand 3 strikes from Jiang Xi. Although it was rumored that Jiang Xi was dead, he still decided to hide behind the scenes for the sake of caution. In the Ma clan of the Chang'an prefecture in the Great Xia Kingdom, the Ma family played a huge role in the fact that the Chang'an local government could stand firm despite being besieged by monsters during the first revival of spirit qi. As a hidden family with thousands of years of history, the Ma family's foundation was not to be underestimated. However, since they were reclusive families, they were naturally not well known. Only the higher-ups of the martial arts world knew of their existence. The head of the Ma family, Ma Jinhai, was a very low-profile warrior. He had been the head of the family for more than 50 years, but he rarely appeared in public. The only thing that left a deep impression on people about Ma Jinhai was that he had a son 24 years ago when he was 100 years old. It was said that he had married more than 30 wives before he had this one son, who was very precious. He named his son Ma Yu, implying that he had a bright future. Ma Yu also lived up to expectations. When he was 20 years old, he relied on his own strength to enter the sky-level training camp opened by Zhenten Buden. In the 3rd year of entering the training camp, he possessed Class A combat strength. Last year, during the 3rd revival of Spirit Qi, he became a Class A warrior in one fell swoop. With such talent, he was among the top of the younger generation of the reclusive families. Ma Jinhai was proud of this. This was his only son, the hope of the Ma family's future. However, Ma Yu died in the Jade Pool secret realm. After Ma Yu's death, Ma Jinhai learned that Ma Yu had secretly joined the Liberal Alliance a long time ago without telling him. However, Ma Yu did not know that his father, Ma Jinhai, was actually one of the people who established the Liberal Alliance. However, in order to hide his identity, Ma Jinhai basically did not interfere with the operations of the Liberal Alliance. "Little Yu, I know that you have great ambitions and want to control this force that is known to have the most warriors. But why didn't you tell me? If you wanted it, I could have given it to you directly." Ma Jinhai stood in front of Ma Yu's grave. Although he was more than 100 years old, he still looked like a middle-aged man. His expression was sorrowful as he looked at Ma Yu's photo on the tombstone. There were only clothes in the grave, and Ma Yu's body was not there. This was because Zhenten Buden's response was that there was no corpse left, and they did not give the cause of death. However, Ma Jinhai was very clear about the real cause of Ma Yu's death. Previously, during the Liberal Alliance's council meeting, he had already learned from Feng Xian that Ma Yu was killed by Zhenten Buden's 5th elder, Jiang Xi. What's the use of cultivating? What's the use of being number 1 in the world? I can't even avenge you with my own hands. Ma Jinhai seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time. After a while, calmness was restored. "Wait, at most 1 more year. Once the plan is completed, I won't be afraid of the Xian Tian anymore. Even if I don't have the chance to personally end Jiang Xi's life, I will still kill everyone around him." Ma Jinhai's eyes were cold. Different from the news circulating outside, he had already confirmed that Jiang Xi was dead. He knew that Jiang Xi had entered the Jade Lake secret realm half a year ago and had not come out yet. No one could live for more than half a year without eating or drinking. At the same time, at Ma Yu's mother's residence. Ma Yu's mother's name was Hu Zhen, and she was Ma Jinhai's 36th wife. When she was 20 years old, she married Ma Jinhai, who was already 99 years old. Unexpectedly, she got pregnant in the 2nd year, so Ma Jinhai did not have no children. Because of that, she became the matriarch of the Ma family. With the help of the Ma family's resources, she had also reached Class A. Hu Jun's face was gloomy as she browsed through an anonymous message. A lot of information appeared in the holographic projection in front of her little Yu. So little Yu didn't die in an accident. He was killed by the Genten Buden's Jiang Ci. Why didn't Jinhai tell me this? Xian Tian, it must be because of Xian Tian. Jiang Ci is the fifth elder of Genten Buden. Even if the Ma family has a deep foundation, they wouldn't dare to offend Xian Tian. Images flashed in the holographic projection. Finally, it stopped at an image of Jiang Ci holding Jiang Dudu's hand as they walked into the banquet hall. The time shown on the image was last year, when Changxing held a celebratory banquet for Jiang Ci. Hu Jun looked at the image and saw Jiang Ci smiling confidently. Her expression gradually turned vicious. The person who sent me this message said that you might be dead. But how can a mere death appease the hatred in my heart? I want the people around you to live a life worse than death. The image flashed again. In the holographic projection, besides Jiang Ci, there was also information about the people who knew Jiang Ci. But I can't act rashly now. Let's wait. Although Hu Jun's heart was filled with hatred, she didn't act rashly. She hadn't been the matriarch of the Ma family for 25 years for nothing. Her vision and methods were extremely strong. As the fifth elder of Genten Buden, Jiang Ci's death had just been announced. If someone were to make a move on the people around Jiang Ci, it was conceivable that the people of Genten Buden wouldn't let it go. No one dared to ignore the deterrence of Xian Tian. So, they had to wait a little longer. They had to wait until fewer people were paying attention to this matter before making a move. Chapter 169. Jiang Ci had disappeared for more than a year. Jiang Sheng was very concerned about Jiang Dudu. After all, he was her martial arts teacher and treated Jiang Dudu as his own child. Ever since the news of Jiang Ci's disappearance spread throughout the martial arts world, he would take time to visit Jiang Ci's house every day to check on Jiang Dudu. He was worried that the little girl would do something stupid because of this. Jiang Dudu did not like it at first. She hated it when people other than Jiang Ci cared about her. But she knew that this was the concern of an elder. Slowly, she got used to it. On this day, Jiang Dudu was practicing in the underground practice room. When the doorbell rang, she showed a helpless expression. She knew that Uncle Jiang was here again. When she opened the door, she found that it was not Jiang Sheng but Zhong Wei. "Where's Uncle Jiang?" Uncle Jiang was seriously injured last night. He's in the hospital now. Zhong Wei's expression was a little ugly. "Take me to see him." Jiang Dudu's expression turned cold. She closed the door and rushed to the hospital with Zhong Wei. She had grown a lot in this year and was less willful. On the way to the hospital, Zhong Wei drove. Jiang Dudu sat in the back and frowned. How did Uncle Jiang get injured? She felt that something was wrong. Jiang Sheng was a D-class martial artist and a law enforcer. The possibility of him getting injured in Pak-Sen province was very low. Uncle Jiang was leading a team on a mission last night when he was attacked. If he did not meet the deputy head of Tsukishin Buden, he might have died. Where's the attacker? He committed suicide. Suicide soldiers? The feeling that something was wrong in Jiang Dudu's heart grew stronger and stronger. Be careful. Suddenly, Jiang Dudu sensed a dangerous aura approaching at an extremely fast speed. Whoosh! A high-explosive bomb that could kill a D-class martial artist came from a tall building in the distance and hit their car. Boom! Boom! There was a huge explosion on the street. The pedestrians panicked and screamed as they fled in all directions. A petite figure carrying a person jumped out from the explosion and landed on the side of the street, leaning against the wall stand behind me. Jiang Dudu shielded Zhong Wei behind her. Dudu, she, is the same as Jiang Ci. She's also an expert. Zhong Wei cut a sorry figure. More than half of his hair was burnt. He was shocked and scared. If it wasn't for Jiang Dudu's timely palm strike to disperse the deadly shockwave caused by the explosion, he might have died. Jiang Dudu held a dagger in her hand and cautiously looked around at the panicking crowd. Suddenly, 3 cold lights shot out from the panicked crowd. With a speed close to the speed of sound, it arrived in front of them almost instantly. "You're courting death," Jiang Dudu shouted coldly. The petite figure flickered in the narrow area. At the same time, he continuously brandished his dagger. Puff, puff. 3 soft sounds were heard. The 3 C-class martial artists clutched their necks and fell to the ground with an expression of disbelief. In an instant, Jiang Dudu severed their necks. This was the strength of a top-notch C-class martial artist. "Dudu, be careful," Zhong Wei exclaimed. He saw a pedestrian who was fleeing in a panic suddenly stab at them while they were facing the 3 attackers. The speed of the sword was so fast that it was impossible to guard against it. Jiang Dudu didn't even think and quickly dodged. Kai! The blade finally pierced through her left shoulder. It was only 2 or 3 centimeters away from her heart. Scram! Jiang Dudu was furious and swung her dagger. The head of the attacker flew into the sky. The battle came quickly and ended quickly. The police siren sounded and the law enforcement team arrived immediately. They quickly cleared the area and the panicked pedestrians were sent to other places. The danger was over. On this day, He Chongqing, the president of Kitasanfu Martial Artists Association, and Chen Yuan, the president of Zhenten Buden in Pak-Sen Province, as well as the vice president, Lu Shan, were all furious. The Law Enforcement Bureau of Pak-Sen Province was mobilized and investigated all the martial artists with criminal records in Pak-Sen Province. Many criminals were caught because of this. For a time, the martial arts world in Pak-Sen Province was in a state of panic. Da Xia country, Ma family of Chang'an. Ma Jinhai looked at his 36th wife coldly. "Who told you to do this?" Hu Zhen pretended to be confused. "I don't understand what you are talking about. Last night, the law enforcement team of Pak-Sen Province was attacked. There were 2 men of sacrifice from the Ma family at the scene. This morning, there was an explosion in Pak-Sen Province. There were 4 men of sacrifice from the Ma family at the scene." Ma Jinhai's face was gloomy. The men of sacrifice of the Ma family could only be mobilized by the family head. Hu Zhen was silent for a while, then suddenly shouted, "Can't I avenge Xiao Yu? If you don't do it, can't I do it?" She was a little hysterical. "Stupid." Ma Jinhai did not want to talk to her anymore. He turned and left. After taking a few steps, he stopped and said coldly, "From today onwards, if I find out that you do it without permission again, your current treatment will be revoked." After saying that, he left without looking back. Hu Zhen looked at his back and cursed him for being a coward. Then, she turned her gaze in the direction of Pak-Sen Province and sneered, "Count yourselves lucky. There won't be a chance like this next time." She did not take Ma Jinhai's words to heart. So what if she was treated as the matriarch of the Ma family? Hu Zhen knew very well that with Ma Yu dead, she, as the matriarch of the Ma family, was just a decoration. In order to ensure the continuation of the Ma family, Ma Jinhai married 3 more wives within this year. There would definitely be more in the future. New Moon Year 95, February 2nd. Sky Tower, Space of Inheritance. Jiang Ci sat cross-legged in front of Ling Wan Road. His eyes were shining. "I have mastered all 9 levels of the Wind God's Escape technique. I will definitely succeed this time." Then, he said in his heart, "Use the Wind God's Escape technique to deduce once." Deduction failed, the experience bar notification sounded. At the same time, his experience bar decreased by 10,000 point. What the fuck? Jiang Ci's eyes twitched. He held back his anger. It was like he had finally gathered all 7 Dragon Balls. In the end, he was told that he had failed to summon the Dragon God. He had spent a whole year and a month here. He was going crazy from boredom. "Fine. I don't believe it. Use the Wind God's Escape technique to deduce once." Deduction failed, 10 times in a row. It was as if he had been cheated for 10 consecutive draws. 100,000 experience bar was gone. Jiang Ci's face darkened. He looked at his experience bar. Experience bar, 182585, he could deduce another 18 times. Again, use the wind god's escape technique to deduce once. Deduction successful. You have comprehended the true meaning of gale. Experience bar plus 100,000. The experience bar has been updated. Please check it in time. There were 3 consecutive notifications on the interface. Jiang Ci was stunned. He succeeded. The true meaning of gale. But before he could be surprised, his spiritual sense fell into emptiness. In a trance, his spiritual sense seemed to be connected to something, and the distance between heaven and earth was closer. Especially the wind. There was originally no wind in this space of inheritance. But at this time, wisps of breeze appeared around Jiang Ci and kept circling. The breeze that was like the end of green duckweed gradually turned into a gale, then a gale, and it became faster and faster. The gale whistled. Chapter 170. In the Tongtian Building's inheritance space. When the wind blew, the top of the second section of Ling Wn Road, which was built with white jade, emitted beams of colorful light. Finally, they converged into a faintly discernible figure of a lady. The lady was like a fairy from a painting. She wore a rainbow-colored feather dress and descended with the wind. She took light steps and walked in front of Jiang Ci, who was comprehending the true intent of gale. Then, she curiously observed Jiang Ci's appearance. You look so ordinary. Why did you suddenly comprehend it? Seems like you have quite a big secret. Suddenly, the gale dissipated. Jiang Ci woke up from his trance and saw the lady in front of him. Who, he instinctively dodged but did not control his speed well. He was gone, 10 kilometers away. Riverward's expression was stunned. His speed just now was too fast. And he did not use much strength. With a thought, he appeared here like a gale. Hey! Why are you running? Just as Jiang Ci was stunned, a beam of light appeared in front of him. The lady appeared again. Are you a human or a ghost? Jiang Ci asked an old question. It was also the most reasonable question under such circumstances. Ha, I'm a ghost. Awu. Awu. Instantly, the lady turned into a green-faced ghost with fangs. She opened her bloody mouth. If you didn't make 2 Awu sounds, I would really believe it. You're the spirit of the illusion? After Jiang Ci calmed down, he guessed the lady's identity. Boring. The lady turned back from her green-faced and fangs. She was not extremely beautiful, but she was pleasing to the eye and unforgettable. I'm Ni Shong, the spirit of the illusion here. You passed the inheritance trial, so I can come out to meet you, she said with a smile. First of all, congratulations, Jiang Ci. You used 1 year and 28 days to comprehend the Jade Lake's inheritance, true intent of gale. This result is ranked 9th in the history of Ling Wan Road. Is there a reward? No, the Jade Pool has been abandoned for many years. If it was 100,000 years ago, with your talent, the Jade Pool would definitely focus on nurturing you. If nothing goes wrong, you might have a chance to touch the immortal path. Ni Shong's expression was very gloomy. Riverward, however, was incomparably shocked. Ni Shong's words revealed too much shocking information. The Jade Lake had been abandoned for many years. 100,000 years ago. Immortal Dao. Big Sister Nichang, the immortal Dao? Could there really be immortals? Or are you an immortal? Jiang Ci suppressed the shock in his heart and hurriedly asked. Ha. Ni Shong was amused by Jiang Ci's words and laughed. I'm not an immortal. I don't know if there are still immortals. When I was born, there were no immortals in the Jade Pool, but there were always legends of the immortal path. Ni Shong smiled. Jiang Ci was silent for a long time before he completely digested the information contained in this sentence. What he could confirm was that Ni Shong was neither an immortal nor a human. Alright, you're just a small cultivator who hasn't even formed a golden core. Don't think about this. If there really are immortals, you're not even an ant in front of them. Jiang Ci realized that this sister was really good at mocking people. However, what was a golden core? It sounded like something from a Xianxia novel. Sister Ni Shong, what's a golden core? Has the orthodoxy of the human world declined to such a state? You've already formed a spirit, But you don't even know what a golden core is? Ni Shong was very surprised. Jiang Ci shook his head. All right, the ignorant are fearless. No wonder you little fellows who haven't even reached the golden core stage have the guts to enter the jade pool. Ni Shong was a little speechless. Then, she explained, in the path of cultivation, you can only be considered a cultivator after forming your spiritual consciousness. Spirit formation, golden core, nascent soul, essence soul, and Tao integration are the 5 stages of cultivation. You've just entered the spirit formation stage. If it were in the past, you wouldn't even be qualified to enter the jade pool. These words made Jiang Ci speechless. So, before the spirit formation stage, he couldn't even be considered a cultivator. However, he wasn't frightened by Ni Shong's words. With the experience points panel, as long as he had enough time and experience points, he could fight his way up no matter how high the stage was. At this moment, Ni Shong changed the topic and said with a smile, "But speaking of which, you little fellows have top-notch talent and comprehension, especially the one called Shen Tian. He's the one with the best comprehension ability among all of you. Even without the help of any inheritance, he managed to comprehend the pinnacle of saber true intent. If it were 100,000 years ago, he would have definitely become a saint of some orthodoxy. Unfortunately, he's not suitable for the Jade Pool's wind inheritance. Otherwise, the sword intent of Gale wouldn't be yours." Jiang Ci was silent. This sister's dictionary didn't have the word tactful. However, the sword intent that Ni Shong mentioned made Jiang Ci very interested. It turned out that the shocking sword intent that Shen Tian displayed previously was the sword intent. "Sister Ni Shong, what's the sword intent? I can't explain it clearly because I'm only an artifact spirit and can't comprehend these. In short, it's related to Tao. Under normal circumstances, if a golden core cultivator can comprehend the Tao intent, he's already considered a genius. Those who can comprehend the Tao intent in the spirit formation stage are few and far between. That's why I said that Shen Tian's comprehension is better than yours." Ni Shong chuckled. "Tao. It's getting more and more mysterious." Jiang Ci remembered this word in his heart. As for Ni Shong saying that Shen Tian's comprehension was better than his, Jiang Ci smiled. Shen Tian was the #1 person in the Spirit Qi revival era. Jiang Ci just smiled. How could it be a joke? He was not jealous because his path was different from Shen Tian's. Ni Shong nodded secretly, admiring Jiang Ci's character very much. She knew that she did not find the wrong person for this legacy. Next, Jiang Ci asked Ni Shong many questions about cultivation. For example, the difference between the sword intent and Gale intent, the cultivation method of golden core, and so on. Ni Shong answered him one by one, allowing him to gain a lot. After a long time, Jiang Ci suddenly lost interest in chatting. "Sister Ni Shong, if there's nothing else, I'll leave now." He had more or less understood what he needed to know. There was nothing to be reluctant to leave here, so he might as well go back. After leaving home for more than a year, he was especially homesick now. His longing and worry for Jiangdudu also became even stronger. "Alright, but you have to remember that when your essence spirit condenses, you must make a trip here again. At that time, there'll be a big gift for you," Ni Shong reminded. "Oh, can't you give it to me now?" Jiang Ci's eyes lit up. "No. With your current strength, you can't control it yet. It'll be harmful instead." Ni Shong shook her head. Then, she waved her sleeves, and a passage appeared in front of Jiang Ci. It was exactly the same as the trial passage when he first came in. Jiang Ci waved and walked into the passage. "Goodbye, Sister Ni Shong." "Goodbye." After Jiang Ci left, the entrance also disappeared. Ni Shong sighed. "Sister Feng, there's finally someone who comprehended your legacy. But where are you now?" With a faint voice, she turned into a 5-colored light again and disappeared in the inheritance space. At the same time, the heaven-reaching tower that had existed for many years slowly disappeared into the fog of the Jade Pool. Chapter 171. At the lake at the summit of Mount Tongtian. Near the entrance of the Jade Lake, there was a new military camp. This military camp was jointly built by the military of Da Xia Kingdom and Genten Buden. Its purpose was to guard everything in the Jade Pool secret realm. Of course, the most important thing was to prevent anyone from discovering the entrance to the Jade Pool. In the sentry post by the lake, a military martial artist who was monitoring the lake suddenly changed his expression and quickly sounded the alarm. Attention all units, there is an abnormal situation on the lake. There is an abnormal situation on the lake. Swoosh, swoosh. Two A-level martial artists from the military of Da Xia Kingdom and Genten Buden arrived at the same time. The A-level martial artist from Genten Buden was Jiang Xi's teacher in the training camp, Yu Lin. The military martial artists stationed here also quickly gathered and were ready for battle. They stared at the lake closely. A ripple grew bigger and eventually formed a whirlpool. Swoosh. A figure rolled up the whirlpool and broke out of the water, then landed lightly by the lake. This person's long hair covered his face, and his face was full of curly beard. He looked very sloppy. "Who are you?" Yu Lin shouted, and his long sword was ready to attack. "Teacher, you don't even recognize me?" "Jiang Xi," Yu Lin exclaimed, but he did not let down his guard. Jiang Xi shook his head and smiled. He waved his hand and used his spiritual power to clean his long hair and beard that he had not cut for more than a year. At this time, Yu Lin really let down his guard. Then, his eyes quickly filled with tears. As he cried, he laughed heartily. "I knew it. I knew it. You, Jiang Xi, won't die so easily." Yu Lin had taken the initiative to apply to be stationed in the Jade Pool secret realm. Otherwise, with his strength, it would be a waste of talent to be stationed here. It was because he did not believe that Jiang Xi was dead. Now, the facts proved that he was right. Jiang Xi was really not dead. At the lakeside, other than Yu Lin who was laughing, the other military martial artists from the Great Xia Kingdom and the Genten Buden martial artists were all stunned by this scene in the past 6 months. The biggest news in the global martial arts world was the death of the fifth elder of Genten Buden, Jiang Xi. But now, River Word had given them a live performance of a living person. "Teacher, long time no see." Jiang Xi waited for Yu Lin to laugh for a while before he said with a smile. "Haha, good, as long as you're alive." Yu Lin was still very excited. Then, he suddenly reacted and shook his head. "I won't take up any more of your time. Let's go home and take a look. There's a transport plane outside Death Valley. Teacher, let's talk again next time." Jiang Xi nodded and left quickly. He didn't hide his speed. His figure flashed, and a gust of wind blew past, instantly disappearing from the military camp. So fast. Yu Lin and the other Class A martial artist looked at each other in astonishment. With this speed, if he wanted to kill them, it would only take one move. Quick! Spread the news. Haha, the martial arts world is going to be lively again. After regaining his senses, Yu Lin laughed heartily again. One of them notified the Genten Buden, while the other notified the higher-ups of the Great Xia Kingdom's military. Xian Tian City. After listening to White Cloud's report, Xian Tian also laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, this kid always does things that surprise people. How did he survive for a year and a month? He must have encountered something that we didn't expect. White Cloud laughed. Wind shadow steps. It must be the wind shadow step. Xian Tian said decisively. White Cloud nodded and agreed with this guess. Then, he said hesitantly, "Teacher, there's one more thing. Jiang Xi has returned to Pakistan province. Isn't it normal to go home? But yesterday, Jiang Xi's sister and his teacher were attacked and almost lost their lives. What is Chen Yuan doing?" Xian Tian frowned. He hadn't heard of this yet. The opponents were all men of sacrifice. Chen Yuan couldn't be on guard all the time. White Cloud shook his head. Xian Tian knew that this matter couldn't be blamed on Chen Yuan. He asked again, "Did you find out who was behind this?" "The Ma family of Chang'an," White Cloud said in a serious tone. Xian Tian instantly understood. Jiang Xi had killed the only son of the Ma family. With this layer of hatred, it was not difficult to understand why the other party would attack. He thought for a while and suddenly laughed. I've always wanted to test the waters of the reclusive families. This time, let Jiang Xi make a scene. You go to Chang'an and guard it first. If they attack Jiang Xi, you can come out. White Cloud smiled. He liked to join in the fun. In a secret place in Shuntian Prefecture of the Great Xia Empire, Huang Kuan laughed heartily after receiving the news that Jiang Xi was still alive. At the same time, he also heard about what the Ma family had done. He was silent for a while and said to the guard beside him, with this kind of hatred, maybe Jiang Xi will attack. Get me a call from the Qin family. I want to invite Qin Qi to Chang'an. Only he can protect Jiang Xi. Xian Tian and Huang Kuan's arrangement had one thing in common. In their opinion, Jiang Xi's strength was far inferior to the Ma family. Therefore, they sent someone to protect Jiang Xi's life. At this time, Jiang Xi was on a transport plane back to Pak-Sen province. As soon as he took off, he used his tactical communications watch to call Jiang Dudu. Dudu will definitely scold me. Jiang Xi thought to himself, if she wants to scold me, then so be it. It's my fault for standing her up. He said he would be back soon, but in the end, he disappeared for more than a year and a month. The call was picked up after a long time. Jiang Dudu's virtual shadow appeared in front of him. Then, a sobbing voice came through. Liar, you big liar. Jiang Dudu just cried and kept repeating this sentence. This made Jiang Xi's heart ache. After a long time, the crying subsided. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Jiang Xi apologized honestly. Then hurry up and go home. Jiang Dudu was surprisingly understanding. I'll be home in 10 minutes. Ah, so fast. Yes, suddenly, Jiang Dudu's virtual shadow disappeared. Ah. Jiang Xi didn't say anything and just shook his head. He had some doubts in his heart. He just noticed that Jiang Dudu's tone seemed to be a little weak. However, he couldn't find out the specific situation through the virtual shadow. Anyway, I'll be able to see her in 10 minutes. Jiang Xi threw his doubts aside, closed his eyes to rest, and secretly opened the experience panel. Cultivation, Spirit Nurture, Early Stage 270-015-2800, Cultivation Technique, 5 Elements Deed of Thorough Comprehension, Peacock Visualization Martial Technique, 9 Elements Sword Technique, Combine 300-003-0000, Wind God Escape, Level 9900-009-0000, Tao Art, Gale True Intent, 1, 5 million, Amplitude, 1 Deduction, 10,000 Experience Points per time Experience Points, 272585. On the panel, there was a new Tao Art column. This made Jiang Xi confirm that it was like what Spirit of the Illusion, Nichang, said. True Intent was indeed related to the so-called Tao. Gale True Intent requires 500,000 experience points to be perfected. There's still a long way to go. Of course, the benefits brought by the high difficulty level were obvious. Just the preliminary comprehension of the Gale True Intent had already made a qualitative leap in his strength. Chapter 172. Spirit Nurturing Stage. Jiang Xi was confident that if he was given more time, he would not be afraid of anyone other than Xian Tian. The reason why he excluded Xian Tian was very simple. According to Ni Shong, Xian Tian had already comprehended the Saber Intent, which was 1 grade higher than the Gale Intent. In terms of combat power, Jiang Xi was not confident that he could defeat Xian Tian. Of course, although Xian Tian's Saber Intent was strong, Jiang Xi was not inferior to him. That was because the Gale Intent was good at speed. In terms of speed, Jiang Xi believed that no one on Earth could beat him. In the past, Li Bai was the fastest in the world. Now, it was him. Pak-Sen Province, Zhenten Buden. It was a similar scene. Chen Yuan and Lu Shan arrived at the plaza in front of the 3 huge buildings at their fastest speed. When they arrived, Jiang Dudu was already waiting there. This time, there were only the 3 of them. Because of the sudden incident, they did not have time to inform the others. Even if they had informed them, they would not be able to make it in 10 minutes. Jiang Dudu was more sensible than before. She nodded at Chen Yuan and Lu Shan as a greeting. Then, she stood quietly in the plaza and waited without saying anything. She deliberately wore a black windbreaker to hide the injury on her left shoulder. Chen Yuan and Lu Shan looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They also felt guilty and did not know how to explain to Jiang Xi later. They had promised to protect Jiang Dudu, but in the end, they still let Jiang Dudu get injured. In just a short while, a stream of light flashed across the sky. A transport plane flew over at high speed and landed in the plaza. "He's here." Their expressions became serious as they welcomed him together with Jiang Dudu. The door of the transport plane opened, and Jiang Xi walked out with a smile. Whoosh! Jiang Dudu's eyes were red. She did not hide her strength. In a flash, she rushed in front of Jiang Xi and hugged him tightly. Then, she bit down. The sharp pain in his left shoulder made Jiang Xi grimace. He did not use his spiritual energy to defend himself. Otherwise, he would have broken Jiang Dudu's teeth after a while. Jiang Dudu finally relented. With tears on her face, she mumbled, "Why didn't you say it hurt?" "It doesn't hurt. It's sweet." Jiang Xi grinned. "It would be strange if it didn't hurt. You don't feel pain, but I do." Jiang Dudu snorted. Jiang Xi smiled, then grabbed her left hand and looked at Chen Yuan and Lu Shan, who were not far away. Just as he was about to walk over to speak, he took a step forward. He then heard Jiang Dudu's barely detectable groan of pain. Jiang Xi looked over in confusion and immediately discovered the difference. Jiang Dudu never wore a black windbreaker before, nor did she use any cosmetics. But now, not only did Jiang Dudu wear a thick windbreaker, but she also smeared something on her face to cover her original complexion. Logically speaking, with his observant nature, he should have been able to discover these differences at the first moment. Because Jiang Dudu had taken the initiative to throw herself at him just now, he did not have time to observe. "You're injured." Jiang Xi's face darkened. "No." Jiang Dudu hurriedly shook her head. "Don't lie to me." Jiang Xi scanned with his spiritual sense and found that Jiang Dudu's aura was unstable, and there was a near-fatal wound on her left shoulder. "Who is it?" Jiang Xi turned his gaze to Chen Yuan and Lu Shan. He exuded a shocking chill, which instantly enveloped the two, making them feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Chen Yuan and Lu Shan were horrified. Now Jiang Xi had crushed them in strength. He was very strong. The feeling Jiang Xi gave them was the same feeling they felt from Xian Tian when they went to the headquarters to meet Xian Tian. They looked at each other and smiled bitterly, not daring to hide anything. Because with Jiang Xi's identity and status, he would find out later. Once they concealed it, they would offend Jiang Xi. It was Hu Zhen, the wife of the master of the Ma family in Chang'an. She sent men of sacrifice to attack Jiang Dudu. Jiang Sheng was also attacked and is still in the hospital. Chen Yuan told the truth. "Jiang Xi, don't be impulsive. The Ma family in Chang'an is a 1,000-year-old reclusive family. Even the master dares not offend them." Lu Shan advised. Jiang Xi was silent for a while. Wisps of breeze appeared around him, and the chill became stronger and stronger. The anger in his heart kept rising. A dragon had a reverse scale, and so did he, Jiang Xi. When Chen Yuan and Lu Shan were nervous, Jiang Xi suddenly sneered. "The Ma family, haha, what a Ma family. A 1,000-year-old reclusive family. I'd like to see how powerful the Ma family is. How dare they hurt the family of Jiang Xi?" His tone was cold and full of killing intent. "I'll be right back." Jiang Xi rubbed Jiang Dudu's head. Jiang Dudu nodded gently. Suddenly, a gust of wind whistled and a gust of wind appeared. Jiang Xi's figure directly soared into the sky and disappeared in an instant with a boom. He flew away. "Today, no one will have an easy time." Only Jiang Xi's voice was left, full of killing intent. "Jiang Xi can actually fly?" Chen Yuan and Lu Shan were stunned. This was different from the airwalk from before. This was flying directly in the air. "Quick! Inform the master." They were in a panic again. Jiang Dudu stood in the same place, looking in the direction of Jiang Xi's departure. Her slightly pale face bloomed with a smile. On this day, from Pakesen Province to Luo City Prefecture, and then to Chang'an City Prefecture, in a straight line of thousands of kilometers. Whether it was the people in the city or the monsters in the wilderness, they were all shocked by the sudden flash of light in the sky. The speed was too fast. It was fleeting. Jiang Xi turned into a gust of wind and lightning, flying rapidly in the air. This was one of the changes brought to him by the gale true will. His strength had a qualitative leap. Real air walk. That was why he was confident that except for Xian Tian, he was not afraid of anyone. Even Xian Tian could not do anything to him. When others could not fly, Jiang Xi could fly, so he had the upper hand. From Pakesen Province to Chang'an City Prefecture, thousands of kilometers, flying in the air only took 10 minutes. Xian Tian and Huang Kuan probably did not expect Jiang Xi's speed to be so fast. This was also because Jiang Xi had slowed down many times during the flight. Otherwise, with his extreme speed, he could have arrived in 2 to 3 minutes. But that extreme speed would put a great burden on the body, and it would be easy to get injured. Whoosh, Jiang Xi came to the huge Chang'an City Prefecture. He did not know the exact location of the Ma family. Easy. Now that he had the spiritual sense, although he did not have the ability to explore the whole city at once, he could always find them. His speed was fast, so was his exploration. Thus, a gust of wind and flowing light flashed continuously in the sky above Chang'an City Prefecture. It was difficult to catch Jiang Xi's figure with just the eyes. He was like an unidentified flying object. For a moment, the senior members of the martial arts world in Chang'an City Prefecture were all on alert and ready to defend themselves. Hundreds of fighter jets rose from the Chang'an army camp outside the city. But these fighter jets could not lock onto Jiang Xi's figure at all. Too fast. Jiang Xi did not care about these. In just a moment, his spiritual sense had found the destination. Found it. Jiang Xi's eyes were full of killing intent. Chapter 173. At this moment, in the Ma family's mansion, Ma Jinhai frowned and was very puzzled. The streamer in the air, no matter how he looked at it, it looked like a person. But now, can anyone fly? In the martial arts world, only 2 people can walk in the air. One is Li Baibai, and the other is Jiang Xi. Now that Jiang Xi is dead, Li Baibai is the only one left. But walking in the air and flying in the air are 2 completely different concepts. The Ma family has a deep heritage. Ma Jinhai knows that Spirit Yun stage cultivators can't fly in the air, only when they reach the gold core stage. At this time, his tactical communications watch vibrated, and he received a new message. After clicking on it, his face changed slightly. Jiang Xi is still alive. He just came out of the Jade Lake secret realm half an hour ago. Still alive. Haha, good, very good. This way, I can avenge Xiao Yu with my own hands. After reading the content of the message, Ma Jinhai laughed. Suddenly, his expression froze as he sensed that something was amiss. He is also in the Spirit Yun stage and has spiritual sense. Just now, he found that there was another spiritual sense that swept over him unscrupulously. Whoosh! Before he could react, the streamer in the air disappeared, and when it reappeared, it was already above his Ma family. The streamer stopped. It was really a person. Jiang Xi. Ma Jinhai's face suddenly changed, and he was even more shocked by Jiang Xi's speed. At that moment, he even felt the threat of death. Because Jiang Xi's speed is at least 3 times faster than him, a Spirit Yun stage martial artist. But Ma Jinhai is a man who has lived for more than 100 years, and he quickly regained his composure. He knew that Jiang Xi must have come for the sneak attack in Pakesen Province yesterday. It's just that it came too fast. At this time, facing the murderer of his son, Ma Jinhai strangely controlled his emotions and did not attack Jiang Xi. He asked with a sullen face, Genten Buden Jiang Xi, why did you break into my Ma family? You know the answer. Ask Huzhen to come out. Jiang Xi was expressionless. I don't understand what you are talking about. Do you really want me to do it? Jiang Xi remained calm. He was not as impulsive as he appeared to be. Back then, Xian Tian had warned him to be careful of the hidden families, and he still remembered it. Even the Xian Tian was wary of the existence, so of course, he wouldn't underestimate it. This is the territory of the Ma clan. If you do anything, you'll be making an enemy of the Chang'an prefecture and the great Xia kingdom. Could it be that you want to commit treason? Ma Jinhai said sternly. I'm giving you face, but you don't want it. His figure flashed in the air. He wanted to do it himself. How dare you? Ma Jinhai was enraged and struck out with his palm. What a joke. Jiang Xi sneered and turned around to strike down with his palm. Spiritual energy surged, and the two palms collided, directly exploding, setting off a strong impact of spiritual energy. After disappearing for a year, he has become stronger again. Ma Jinhai was shocked. He did not stop attacking. If he allowed Jiang Xi to kill Hu Zhen in front of him, then the Ma family would lose all face. Boom, boom, boom. He kept blasting out powerful attacks to stop Jiang Xi. The strength of his spiritual energy should be at the middle stage of spirit nurturing. But my target now is not him. Jiang Xi's figure flitted in the air and dodged easily. His target was only Hu Zhen. He kept searching with his spiritual sense. Swoosh. Jiang Xi struck out again and got rid of Ma Jinhai's entanglement. He instantly disappeared in the air. His spiritual sense had already found Hu Zhen's location. Although he didn't know what Hu Zhen looked like, under the investigation of his spiritual sense, there was only one woman who had the highest status in this huge mansion and hated him to the core. This was an ancestral hall hidden in the depths of the Ma clan mansion. There were many memorial tablets erected. Hu Zhen was kneeling in the ancestral hall. Jiang Xi's figure suddenly appeared in front of Hu Zhen. He said coldly, "You're Hu Zhen?" Hu Zhen raised her head, but there was no fear on her face. Her eyes were filled with resentment. She said hatefully, "Jiang Xi, you'll die a horrible death. Chimph, petty tricks." Jiang Xi was unmoved. He raised his hand and slapped away the item in Hu Zhen's hand. He didn't expect it to be a glass bottle. The glass bottle fell on the ground of the ancestral hall and shattered. Dark red liquid flowed out and quickly seeped into the ground. Following that, Ma Jinhai rushed in. When he saw this scene, his expression changed drastically. The ground was filled with the blood left behind by Ma Yu. Ma Jinhai shouted angrily, "Hu Zhen, look what you've done." His shout stunned Jiang Xi for a moment. He didn't understand Ma Jinhai's position. He, Jiang Xi isn't a good person. There's no good person in your Ma clan either. Haha, die. All of you, die. Hu Zhen's face revealed a strange smile. Vicious woman. Ma Jinhai was furious. It was as if he was even angrier than when Jiang Xi killed his son. He condensed his spiritual energy and struck out with his palm. He directly killed Hu Zhen, who had a strange smile on her face. Then, he knelt on the ground in fear and bowed piously in front of the memorial tablet in the ancestral hall. Jiang Xi didn't need to guess at this strange scene. He knew that something was wrong. Moreover, he sensed that there was a frightening and sinister aura emerging from the ground. It was constantly growing stronger. Danger. Retreat. Jiang Xi retreated and rushed into the sky. But it was very strange. He felt that there was an invisible palm following him closely, as if it wanted to catch him. It was a terrifying feeling. Dong dong dong. As if something was hitting the ground, more than half of the Ma clan's mansion collapsed. Many people were running for their lives. What's underground? Is this the foundation of a reclusive family? Jiang Xi was shocked. I can't be caught by the invisible palm. Intuition told Jiang Xi that if he was caught, he would die. Gale true intent. Around Jiang Xi, wisps of wind circled. But the strange thing was that the wind couldn't gather and form a real gale. The gale true intent was suppressed, and the speed of flight was greatly reduced. Zhou sword technique. Jiang Xi launched a counterattack in the air. The spiritual weapon-level killer shadow sword kept stabbing and fighting with the invisible palm. Boom, boom, boom. The momentum was astonishing. The ground trembled as if there was an earthquake. Inside the Chang'an local government, ordinary people were trembling. As for the martial artists, whether they were in A or F class, they felt more intense than ordinary people. A chill rose from the bottom of their hearts, as if they were shrouded in a great terror. Outside the Chang and local government, two figures, one in front and one behind, rushed over from two directions and then gathered together. It was White Cloud and Qin Chi. Their spiritual senses immediately discovered the battle in the air. Jiang Ci was fighting with an invisible palm and was at a disadvantage. Oh no! Both of their expressions changed drastically. They didn't dare to get close, fearing that they would be attacked by the invisible palm. Ma Jinhai, that trash, actually woke up the Ma clan's patriarch. Isn't he afraid that the patriarch will destroy the Ma clan when he's unconscious? Qin Chi said coldly with anger. White Cloud, on the other hand, was concerned about Jiang Ci's safety. She hurriedly asked, "Is there a way?" Qin Chi took a deep breath and said seriously, "We can only try. Fortunately, I brought the Qin clan's ancestral item. Hopefully, it will be effective." Chapter 174. The scene in the air was very strange. Only a figure could be seen swinging his sword with all his might. This was because only his spiritual consciousness could detect the terrifying invisible palm print. In his desperation, Qin Chi took out an old seal and threw it at the invisible palm print in the air. At the same time, he shouted, "My ancestor sends his greetings to Senior. Please calm down." Whoosh! The seal froze in the air and was caught by the invisible palm print. Good chance. Jiang Ci's eyes flashed. His gale true intent exploded and he disappeared into the air. He had escaped. At the same time, after the invisible palm print caught the seal, it seemed to have calmed down its anger and quickly returned underground. Whoosh! Jiang Ci's spiritual consciousness had discovered White Cloud and Qin Chi. His figure flashed and he appeared in front of the two of them. "Thank you for your help." Jiang Ci thanked them sincerely. If it weren't for the seal, he might have been caught by the invisible palm print. The result of being caught was death. "You brat, you always surprise us." White Cloud heaved a sigh of relief, but he was also extremely shocked. They had all seen the scene of River Word flying in the air just now. Now, Jiang Ci's strength and methods were probably not inferior to the two of them. However, they did not ask why Jiang Ci could fly. It would be impolite to ask such a secret that involved one's opportunities. "Let's go to the Ma family and take a look," Qin Chi said in a deep voice. The three of them rushed towards the Ma family. The commotion just now was too big. More than half of the Ma family's mansion was destroyed. When they arrived, many of the Ma family's warriors were treating the injured clansmen. The moment the abnormality in the ancestral hall came too suddenly, many people were affected and some were seriously injured. It was very tragic. Seeing this, Jiang Ci's expression was indifferent. The main cause of all this was the dead Hu Zhen and the ancestor underground of the Ma family, not him. If Hu Zhen hadn't attacked Jiang Dudu and Jiang Sheng, he wouldn't have come here and the matter of breaking the glass bottle wouldn't have happened. Of course, even if he didn't break the glass bottle, Hu Zhen would have broken it anyway. Ma Jinhai came before the three of them. He looked at Jiang Ci and asked in a hoarse voice, "Are you satisfied now? My grudge with Hu Zhen ends here." Jiang Ci nodded lightly. Then, he thought for a moment and said, "There's another grudge between us. I'm sure you already know that I killed Ma Yu. If you say you don't care about such a huge grudge, no one will believe you. Why don't we end this grudge today? Senior Qin and White Cloud can be witnesses." As Jiang Ci spoke, he was secretly observing Ma Jinhai's reaction. He was testing Ma Jinhai. This was because he realized that Ma Jinhai's actions were very unusual from the beginning to the end. He had killed Ma Jinhai's son. With such hatred, Ma Jinhai was actually able to hold himself back from attacking him when he first saw him. It was very unusual. Ma Jinhai looked like an angered honest person. He looked at Qin Chi and said angrily, "Qin Chi, listen to this. This is the fifth elder of Genten Buden, Jiang Ci. He killed my son, forced my wife to her death, and now he dares to humiliate the Ma family, bullying others like this. Where is the justice?" Qin Chi shook his head and was unmoved. He said to Ma Jinhai, I advise you to calm the situation quickly. Otherwise, if you attract too much attention, the Ma family will be exposed. Don't say I didn't warn you. White Cloud, who was beside him, sneered, don't pretend to be pitiful. Who is your son? How did he die? What did Huzhen do? Don't you know? Don't say that the Genten Buden is bullying others. Otherwise, you can ask my master to be the judge. By mentioning Shen Tian in the last sentence, he was blatantly using his power to bully others. Ma Jinhai's expression changed and he said angrily, you will die a horrible death. Ha ha. White Cloud laughed. What can you do to me? Jiang Xi's expression changed. It seemed that Ma Jinhai also knew about Ma Yu's identity. There is a gloomy atmosphere in the Ma family. It makes me uncomfortable. I'll leave first. Jiang Xi got the result he wanted and did not want to stay here any longer. Moreover, he had also warned White Cloud and Qin Chi about Ma Jinhai's abnormality. He did not want to be involved in the rest of the matter. After speaking, Jiang Xi rushed into the sky again and turned into a stream of light, flying in the direction of Pak Sen province. Ma Jinhai only looked at Jiang Xi angrily and did not do anything. White Cloud and Qin Chi looked at each other. They also realized that something was wrong with Ma Jinhai. Then, the two of them left the Ma family and went to the Genten Buden of the Chang and local government to rest. Qin Chi asked White Cloud, what is Ma Yu's real identity? White Cloud sneered, the Liberal Alliance's secret agent in the sky-level training camp. Qin Chi's expression immediately became serious. This matter was worth investigating. The Liberal Alliance was like a disgusting tumor to the entire martial arts world. None of the major martial arts forces did not want to get rid of the Liberal Alliance. However, there were many martial artists in the Liberal Alliance. The cost of poaching them was too high and could easily cause chaos in the martial arts world. If they did not poach them, the martial artists of the Liberal Alliance would often cause trouble all over the world and come out to disgust people. This situation was also one of the reasons why the Liberal Alliance could survive until now. Another reason was that the founder of the Liberal Alliance was extremely mysterious. Until now, no one knew his identity. This person was like a poisonous snake hiding in the depths of the grass. It was impossible to guard against him. This situation made people very wary. If this person took revenge, it would be very troublesome. Therefore, for so many years, the major martial arts forces had basically been tracking down the founder of the Liberal Alliance. Now, they finally found something. They had found something in the past, but it was not as valuable as this discovery. Master asked me to come here and help Jiang Xi, but I didn't expect to find something unexpected. Ma Jinhai's reaction this time is very strange. Coupled with the fact that his son is a secret agent of the Liberal Alliance, I think we should pay more attention to him, White Cloud said. He said this to test Qin Chi's attitude. Because the status of the reclusive families was extraordinary, and Ma Jinhai was the head of the Ma family, they could not casually investigate him. That would easily cause the hatred of all the reclusive families. Qin Chi was a contemporary expert of the reclusive Qin family. He was ranked in the top 10 of the world's martial arts world. His words had a lot of weight among the reclusive families. If Qin Chi did not object to investigating the Ma family, then the rest would be much smoother. The Liberal Alliance must be eliminated. I agree to investigate Ma Jinhai, but I request a joint investigation team. Qin Chi pondered for a moment before making a decision. No problem, but the investigation team cannot have too many people. Otherwise, the information will be easily leaked. Agreed. Chapter 175. In the ancestral hall of the Ma family, Huzhen's body was still lying there. There was also a pile of broken glass next to it, but the blood that flowed out of it had disappeared completely. It was very strange. Ma Jinhai walked into the ancestral hall with a gloomy face. Seeing Huzhen's body, his expression was gloomy, and he cursed. Bitch, you almost ruined my plans. After venting, he asked someone to come over and clean up. Soon, whether it was Huzhen, who was killed by his palm, or the broken glass, they were all cleaned up. Peace was restored in the ancestral hall. The terrifying existence underground, known as the Ma family's ancestor, had fallen into a deep sleep again. Ma Jinhai respectfully offered incense to the memorial tablets in the ancestral hall. Then, he opened a secret door behind the ancestral hall and walked in. This was a secret room that had existed long before the recovery of spirit aura. The Ma family had been passed down for thousands of years, and this secret room had a lot to do with ensuring that the inheritance was not destroyed in countless disasters. This was because it could block the detection of other people's spiritual senses. The secret room was not big. It was like a vertical rectangle, just enough for a person to stand. After Ma Jinhai entered, the door of the secret room closed again. In the darkness, he used his tactical communications watch to edit a message according to a special encryption method and sent it out. Then, he crushed the tactical communications watch, and his eyes flickered. Do you think I don't know that you are testing me? Hu Jun's unauthorized attack and Jiang Xi's sudden attack. It made Ma Jinhai realize that he might expose a lot of things. Therefore, he beat them at their own game and deliberately revealed those flaws in front of Jiang Xi and the others. This way, he could focus everyone's attention on him. In this way, not only could he eliminate the impact of Hu Jun's unauthorized attack on him, he could also take this opportunity to divert everyone's attention and make the Liberal Alliance's secret plan more hidden and safer. Once the plan succeeded, even if his true identity was exposed, it would not matter. Because at that time, he would no longer be afraid of anyone. After Ma Jinhai finished dealing with the Liberal Alliance, Jiang Xi's figure flashed in his mind. The suppressed hatred in his heart suddenly surged. At such a young age, with such talent, he has already reached the spirit nurturing stage at the age of 21. No wonder he is the #1 genius after the spirit chi recovery. If it weren't for these grudges, perhaps I would have chosen to pay a high price to rope you in. Unfortunately, you are now my enemy. No matter what, you have to die. All of you must die. The killing intent in Ma Jinhai's heart had already reached its peak, but he was doing his best to restrain it. The low growl of Swan Man echoed in the small chamber. Before White Cloud returned to Shentian City, she reported what had happened in Chang'an to Shentian. This included the final discussion between him and Qin Chi about the establishment of the investigation team. Spirit nurturing stage. Flying in the air. Shentian was interested. It seemed that Jiang Xi had gained a lot in Heavenly Tower. In Shentian's eyes, flying was obviously more important. Even the strange things that happened in the Ma family were temporarily put aside by him. This was because flying in the air and walking in the air for a short period of time were two different things. What it represented was extraordinary. As the world's strongest martial artist, he also had some understanding of the cultivation realm after the spirit nurturing stage. He knew that only when one reached the golden core stage could one truly fly in the air. Master, since Jiang Xi is already a spirit nurturing stage martial artist, according to the requirements, we need to assign him a secret realm to guard. Should we start preparing now? White Cloud asked. He just came out of Jade Lake. If I assign him a task now, wouldn't it be unreasonable? Let him rest for a while and spend more time with his family. Shen Tian smiled. In addition, keep an eye on the investigation team. This time, we are going to wrestle with the Liberal Alliance. Jiang Xi quietly returned to Zhenten Buden, Pakistan province, without alerting anyone. Not long after he returned, he received a call from Shen Tian. Shen Tian's virtual shadow appeared in front of him. President. Jiang Xi still respectfully saluted. You are now a spirit nurturing stage martial artist, so you don't have to be so restrained. I am looking for you this time because I want to know something. Shen Tian smiled. President wants to know about my experience in Tongtian Tower? Jiang Xi was not surprised. He was already prepared for this. I don't need to know the details. That is your opportunity. It is not convenient for me to pry. I just want to know, do you know the realm after the spirit nurturing stage? Shen Tian's eyes were full of expectation. Jiang Xi's heart moved. Shen Tian definitely knew about the golden core stage and other realms, but he should not have the corresponding cultivation method. After all, Shen Tian was also an ordinary person, without the heritage of a hidden family. After thinking about it, he decided to reveal some information to Xian Tian. After the spirit nurturing stage is the golden core stage, then there are the nascent soul stage, primordial spirit stage, and the unification stage. Haha, sure enough, I knew that this path was not wrong. Xian Tian seemed particularly excited. After laughing, he quickly asked, "Then do you know the cultivation method of the golden core stage?" After saying that, he felt that it was inappropriate and added, "I can use treasures of equal value in exchange." Jiang Xi smiled and nodded in agreement. Then, Xian Tian sent him a list of his collection. This list was very detailed, and the light image introduction made it clear at a glance. The things inside made Jiang Xi envious. Xian Tian was worthy of being the world's #1 martial arts expert. He was so rich that he was overflowing with oil. There were dozens of weapons of the spirit weapon level. The other treasures were even more dazzling. In the end, Jiang Xi picked a long sword from this list. "Just this one? You can pick a few more." Xian Tian was surprised. Jiang Xi shook his head and said with a smile, "Then give me a few more A-grade healing potions." Xian Tian sighed and lamented Jiang Xi's righteousness. Finally, he said with some difficulty, "There's one more thing. I wonder if you would mind teaching the cultivation method of the golden core stage to others, such as Li Bai and the others?" Jiang Xi did not refuse and agreed. The world's #1 expert had a difficult expression, so he could not refuse. Moreover, it just happened to increase the strength of Da Xia's high-end martial artists. After all, Li Bai and the others were on the same side as him. "Dojo master, you can do as you see fit. The only thing is that it cannot be leaked to foreign martial artists." "Don't worry, I know what to do." The two chatted for a while before ending the call. Xian Tian promised that he would send the items to Pak Sn province today. After that, Jiang Xi walked to the villa's balcony and smiled when he saw Jiang Dudu, who was sitting cross-legged and cultivating. Jiang Dudu noticed Jiang Xi approaching. She opened her eyes and said angrily, "What are you laughing at?" "Nothing much, it's just that someone sent us something good." Riverward chuckled. "Oh." Jiang Xi sat down beside Jiang Dudu and told her about the deal with Xian Tian. Jiang Dudu lowered her head and was silent for a while. Suddenly, she raised her head and said, "Jiang Xi, you've changed." Hey. Tell me clearly. How did I change again? You weren't so generous in the past. As the saying goes, it's easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but hard to go from extravagance to frugality. Now, you're floating. How am I floating? Who doesn't know the importance of the cultivation method? The cultivation method of the golden core stage is such an important thing, and you exchanged it for a spiritual weapon? It's completely for free. Isn't this so that they will owe me a favor? Jiang Xi, where did the shrewdness you had when you were selling vegetables go? As the saying goes, if you increase the rice, you increase the rice, and you increase the rice, you increase the rice, but if you don't, sometimes it will have the opposite effect. Chapter 176. Seeing Jiang Dudu scolding him, Jiang Xi felt very warm. It had been a long time since he had seen such a scene. When Jiang Dudu was almost done, Jiang Xi reached out and scratched her nose. He smiled and said, "I was the one who taught you all these principles. Don't worry, we definitely won't lose out this time." He wouldn't make a deal where he would lose out. He had gotten the golden core cultivation method from Ni Shong. It was an unexpected gain. However, just like what Jiang Dudu had said, in terms of value, the golden core cultivation method was definitely priceless in this era. The reason why he said he didn't lose out was because the long sword he had chosen wasn't simple. Even Xian Tian himself probably didn't realize the value of the long sword. Otherwise, he wouldn't have put it in the list. In Jiang Xi's eyes, the value of the longsword was even higher than the golden core cultivation method. Because it was a spiritual weapon, not a spiritual weapon. Spiritual weapons could only withstand spiritual power, but spiritual weapons could withstand spiritual power and spiritual power at the same time. It was a real weapon for cultivators. In the evening, a transport plane from Shentian City landed in Zhenten Buden, Pak Sen Province. An A-grade martial artist from the headquarters personally delivered a black alloy box to Jiang Xi's house. The A-grade martial artist who delivered the box was very respectful to Jiang Xi. Because Jiang Xi's shocking feat of flying in the air had already spread throughout the martial arts world, it had become the two hottest pieces of news at the moment. The other piece of news was, of course, the news of Jiang Xi's resurrection from the dead. It was equivalent to one person occupying the first and second hottest searches. All the martial artists in the world were trying their best to digest the impact of these two pieces of news. The stronger the person, the more they could understand how powerful Jiang Xi was. However, Jiang Xi was still the same as before. He didn't show any arrogance and thanked the A-grade martial artist very kindly. Then, he returned to the villa's training room full of anticipation. He took a deep breath and opened the black alloy box. He saw a quaint long sword embedded in the recess of the chest. Although the long sword seemed to have been ravaged by time, the blade still glowed with a cold light. Furthermore, the mysterious patterns on the sword seemed to have the effect of captivating one's mind, making one feel as if they had fallen into an abyss. Spirit artifact, abyss condensation. This was not a name he came up with on the spur of the moment. It was a name that had been engraved on the sword hilt. A spirit artifact can only display its true power after being refined with one's spiritual sense. Otherwise, it would be no different from an ordinary spirit artifact, just a little sharper. Jiang Xi understood that Shen Tian probably did not have the spiritual sense to refine the spiritual tool, so he was not clear about the value of the abyss condensation. Otherwise, this benefit would not have fallen into his hands. Coincidentally, when he was in the Heavenly Tower's inheritance space, he had learned about spirit weapons from Ni Shong and knew how to refine spirit weapons. However, Jiang Xi wasn't in a hurry to refine it. Instead, he opened the bottom layer of the alloy box. He saw 10 A-grade life potions neatly placed inside. This was specially prepared for Jiang Dudu and Jiang Sheng. Both of them were injured. With the A-grade life potions, their injuries would recover very quickly. Only when their injuries were healed would he be able to cultivate in peace. The next day, Jiang Xi brought Jiang Dudu, who had recovered from her injuries, to visit Jiang Sheng. After Jiang Sheng saw Jiang Xi, he was also very excited. Strictly speaking, he was Jiang Xi's first martial Dao teacher and was Jiang Xi's senior. Naturally, he hoped that Jiang Xi would be well. Moreover, he had also heard of Jiang Xi's shocking actions at Chang'an local government yesterday. He was touched and emotional. In the face of Jiang Sheng's praise, Jiang Xi didn't feel proud or complacent. He remained humble and was very respectful to Jiang Sheng. After treating Jiang Sheng's injuries, Jiang Xi returned home and focused on refining the abyss condensation sword. According to the method Ni Shong taught him, he used his spiritual consciousness to refine the abyss condensation sword for half a month before finally refining it completely. 2 moons hung in the sky. The moonlight on a full moon night was exceptionally bright. Jiang Xi took advantage of the night and flew directly to Ruin 052, which was about 500 kilometers away from Pak Sen Province. He held the abyss condensation sword in his hand as he stood on a tall building in Ruin 052. Let me see the true power of a spirit weapon. Jiang Xi's eyes flashed as he stared at an A-grade shadow-flying leopard in the depths of the ruins. However, he didn't release his spirit vessel aura. He just walked over, or he would scare the monster away. Roar. The shadow-flying leopard saw Jiang Xi and pounced over with an angry roar. It was incomparably swift and fierce. Heh. Jiang Xi chuckled. His spiritual consciousness and spirit energy were instantly injected into the abyss condensation sword. Then, he waved it lightly and silently. The shadow-flying leopard's spiritual eyes had a baffled look. It wondered if this human was a fool. However, in the next moment, it became alarmed because its line of sight had changed. The distance between its 2 eyes was constantly increasing. It was split into 2 halves by that sword along its forehead. Jiang Xi sheathed the sword, very satisfied with the power of the abyss condensation sword. With this spirit weapon, his strength increased by a lot again. In general, the sword was the main carrier of his strength. What he was good at was the swift sword. Whether it was the 9 elemental sword technique or the newly comprehended true intent of Gale. What he displayed in the end could be summed up in one word: farce. 2 words: speed. And now, the only thing that could increase his speed again was to raise the realm of the true intent of Gale. True intent of Gale, 1, 5 million. 1 experience point was too eye-catching on the interface. Next, let's start cultivating seriously. The encounter in the Ma family made Jiang Xi understand that the water in this world was still very deep. With his current strength, it was not enough to deal with all the dangers. He needed to become stronger. The main reason why the true intent of Gale was suppressed that day should be because the realm of the true intent of Gale was not high enough. Although the true intent of Gale was only 1 experience point, it brought a qualitative leap in his strength. But if he encountered someone who also comprehended the true intent of the Tao, and the other party's comprehension was deeper, it was normal to be suppressed. 500,000 experience points, let's fight. Jiang Xi entered a frenzied state of hunting. He killed monsters when he saw them. No matter if it was an F-class monster or an A-class monster, he killed one when he saw one. Because his current experience point gap was too big. He had already entered the era of 100,000 experience points. At this time, he especially hoped for a beast tide. Then, he could really quickly farm experience. Unfortunately, a beast tide was not so easy to gather. And as he continued his hunt, the monsters in the ruined city did not gather. Instead, they began to escape, leaving the ruins and hiding in the wilderness. Creatures with intelligence would seek good fortune and avoid disaster. The monsters were scared of him. The ruined cities in Pakistan province were once again affected. Those martial artists who often came to the ruined cities to train also lamented that they could not find any monsters to kill. They all ran away. This time, no one would come to Jiang Xi to complain. Who would dare to? Now, Jiang Xi's strength had already spread throughout the martial arts world. He was the true pinnacle of martial arts, standing at the top of the human race. Chapter 177. What made people heave a sigh of relief was that in just a month, Riverward stopped. Because Jiang Xi found that he couldn't find any monsters to kill. It would be a waste of time if he continued to waste time. After a month, his experience points finally exceeded the 1 million mark, which was enough for him to spend for a long time. With enough experience points, he had the capital to keep a low profile. Next, it was time to keep a low profile. He focused on cultivating and improving his cultivation and Gale true intent. It was worth mentioning that after reaching the spirit nourishment stage, with his current physical strength, he could increase his cultivation, martial arts, and Tao techniques by 500 points every day. Any more and it would exceed his body's limit. Of course, if he had a large amount of spiritual energy, he wouldn't be limited by this. Unfortunately, he was only left with a 1,000-year Fei, the lotus seed pod. The rest had been used up during the inheritance trial. Jiang Xi didn't deliberately pursue these. Anyway, there was nothing important now. He just needed to steadily improve his strength. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. New Moon Year 95, July 15th, Ghost Festival. The 2 moons in the sky seemed to have become a little cold. Great Xia Country, Mount Shu Prefecture. There was once an ancient poem, Mount Shu is Difficult. It described the terrain and environment of the mountains and rivers of Mount Shu. After the recovery of spiritual energy, the environment here became more strange and dangerous. All kinds of powerful monsters were scattered in the mountains and rivers. Late one night, an invisible transport plane landed in the wilderness outside Shushan Prefecture. A group of people walked out of the transport plane. The monsters in the surrounding mountains and forests fled in all directions. Because the aura emitted by these people was at least A-class. 12 of them were wearing black robes with red clouds. Some were Great Xia Country martial artists, and some were foreign martial artists. They were the 12 directors of the Liberal Alliance. This was the first time they acted together. The other 3 were the 3 spirit nourishment stage martial artists who trespassed the Jade Lake secret realm last time and were scared away by the Shen Tian, Sholuk, Johansson, and Ivan. When will your boss arrive? Sholok asked the group of people wearing black robes with red clouds. He was a contemporary powerhouse of the Peacock country. Even in the world's martial arts world, he was ranked at the forefront. His strength was not ordinary. This time, the three of them had been invited by the mysterious founder of the Liberal Alliance to come here and unearth the opportunities of a secret realm in the Great Shia Kingdom. Sam was still the representative of the Liberal Alliance. Facing the spirit-nurturing stage cultivator, Sam replied respectfully, "We don't know the whereabouts of the people from Yuanqing Mountain. He just asked us to wait." Sholok and the other two looked at each other and didn't press him. This was because they were also very afraid of the mysterious hermit Yuanqing. On the other side, the 12 directors of the Liberal Alliance were testing each other. After all, some of them had only met at the board of directors, and this was the first time they had met in real life. For example, Mr. M, who was second only to Mr. Yuanqing in terms of mystery, became the target of everyone's probing. Mr. M, Ma Jinhai, wore a mask this time, so no one could recognize his true identity. Mr. M is also from the Da Xia Kingdom? Feng Xian was the first to ask. That's right, Ma Jinhai said in a low voice. Mr. M, have you heard about the earth-shattering battle in the Chang'an local government half a year ago? Such a big event has already spread throughout the martial arts world. Of course, I've heard about it. Ma Jinhai lost his son and his wife. Do you know that? Yes. The two of them exchanged words. In the end, Feng Xian still didn't find out Mr. M's true identity. In fact, during the last board of directors meeting, everyone suspected that Mr. M was Ma Jinhai from the Ma family in the Chang'an local government. However, they couldn't jump to conclusions easily without seeing his face. If they were wrong, it would be big trouble. Because the Ma family in the Chang'an local government was a reclusive family with a history of thousands of years. No one dared to provoke or frame the master of a reclusive family. Half a year ago, because of Jiang Xi's revenge, the Ma family revealed those strange scenes. Even if it was just a video, it still made them feel frightened. Whoosh! The sound of someone walking through the forest was heard. Almost instantly, a skinny figure in a black robe appeared in front of everyone. A gloomy and cold aura suddenly spread out, making people tremble with fear. Greetings, Hermit Yuanqing. The 12 directors of the Liberal Alliance all saluted respectfully. Sharuk and the other two also nodded slightly to show their respect. It's almost time. Let's go. Hermit Yuanqing's harsh voice sounded. As he said that, he rushed into the depths of the mountains. The others hurriedly followed. Feng Xian looked at Mr. Ms back in front of him with a playful expression. At the same time, he was also secretly excited. Soon, I will reach the Spirit Yun stage and stand at the peak of human martial art. After more than a year of cultivation, his strength had finally reached the A-level bottleneck. However, to become a Spirit Yun stage martial artist, he still needed more time to practice visualization and polish himself. Only then could he have a chance to break through. But now, he had a chance to reach the Spirit Yun stage quickly. As for the hatred between him and Jiang Xi, he didn't dare to hope for revenge with his own hands. Feng Xian knew that even if he reached the Spirit Yun stage, there would still be a huge gap between him and Jiang Xi. In his subconscious, he had even tacitly given up the idea of revenge. Now, he was wholeheartedly pursuing martial arts. In front of him, Ma Jinhai's mood was not affected by Feng Xian's words. His expression under the mask was very calm. This was because he knew very well what he needed and what he wanted this time. Jiang Xi, just you wait. After today, I will be able to surpass Shen Tian. Killing you will be a piece of cake. Under the guidance of Hermit Yuanqing, the group of people arrived in front of an inconspicuous mountain in just a moment. This location was very secluded and hidden in the mountains surrounded by monsters. Very few people would take the risk to enter this place. We're here. Hermit Yuanqing's eyes emitted a frightening cold light. At the foot of the mountain was a hidden cave that led to the underground. The group of people continued to go down along the cave. Finally, they stopped in an empty stone cave underground. This is The directors of the Liberal Alliance were all shocked. This stone cave was the place where they usually held meetings through the virtual projection. However, Hermit Yuanqing did not care about their shock. He walked straight to the stone wall of the stone cave without saying a word. Then, he took out a black tooth from under his black robe and placed it on the ground in front of the stone wall. "Take out the things I asked you to collect." Hermit Yuanqing's tone was also calm. Feng Xian, Ma Jinhai, and the others put away their shock and took out an item each. There was a strand of withered yellow hair, a section of finger bone that was about to be weathered, a piece of skin, and so on. Together with the tooth, there were a total of 13 items. They looked very ordinary, but when these items were placed together, they emitted a chilling aura. These were the items that the Liberal Alliance had collected for this plan over the years. Hermit Yuanqing knelt on the ground under the curious gazes of the crowd and worshipped the items devoutly. After a while, he made other moves. He made a few strange seals in front of the 13 items, and his spiritual power surged. "Open!" Hermit Yuanqing suddenly roared. His domineering aura made the others instinctively retreat. He was too powerful. At the same time, Hermit Yuanqing slapped out the seals and landed on the items. A strange scene appeared. Suddenly, the items turned into 13 rays of black light and drilled into the stone wall. Something seemed to have happened to the seemingly ordinary stone wall. Suddenly, a cold and gloomy light shone from the top of the mountain, eerily passing through the top of the mountain and shining directly on the stone wall. If someone was outside the stone cave, they would see that the cold light was the moonlight tonight. The moonlight gathered and poured down like a pillar of light, enveloping the mountain peak above the stone cave. There was no sound. The stone wall began to become illusory. Gradually, it disappeared. In the end, a deep hole was left. It was like a spatial door that connected to an unknown space. A gloomy aura spread out from the unknown space. Chapter 178. After half a year of concentrated, open, cultivation, cheat, Jiang Xi's strength had reached another level. Cultivation, Spirit Vessel, Middle Stage 457-015-2800, Cultivation Method, 5 Elements Deed of Thorough Comprehension, Peacock Visualization Martial Technique, 9 Elements Sword Art, Combine 300-003-0000, Wind God Escape, Level 9900-009-0000, Dao Technique, Gale Intent, 8151, 5 million, Amplitude, 2, 467 Deduction, 10,000 experience points per time experience points, 10105555. In terms of cultivation, it had risen from the early stage of Spirit Vessel to the middle stage of Spirit Vessel, and it was not far from the late stage of Spirit Vessel. The spiritual energy in his body, whether it was the total amount or the intensity, had reached a new level. In terms of Dao technique, the Gale Intent was no longer an embarrassing 1 experience point. The improvement of the Gale Intent caused his spiritual energy amplitude to correspondingly increase to 467 times. In other words, when he made a move, the strength of each spiritual energy unit was more than twice the original, which was also a step up. Overall, his overall strength had reached a new level. Although I don't know how I compare to Shen Tian, other cultivators in the late stage of Spirit Vessel, I'm definitely not weak. Jiang Xi was very confident. Even if it was the world's second Li Bai, Jiang Xi was confident that he could kill her. There's still one more problem. Now the 9 Elements Sword Art can't keep up with my strength, it needs to be improved. Under the moonlight, Jiang Xi sat cross-legged on the rooftop of the villa, thinking about this problem. In the past 6 months, he had also used the experience points panel to deduce the 9 Elements Sword Art. But the number of failures made his heart ache so much that he didn't dare to think about the word deduce anymore. A total of 50 times, using up 500,000 experience points, all of them fail. The success rate was so low that it made one's hair stand on end. The reason for the failure, Jiang Xi was also clear. It must be that the 9 Elements Sword Art's martial technique grade was too low. The success rate of the deduction was determined by the grade and completeness of the martial technique and Dao technique, but where can I get a high-grade martial technique? The 9 Elements Sword Art was already one of the best martial techniques on earth. Jiang Xi was a little worried. Leave it to fate. Then, he jumped off the rooftop and went to find Jiang Dudu. Next, he would accompany Jiang Dudu in her training. For some reason, Jiang Dudu had taken a liking to the path of assassination. In Zhenten Buden, Pakistan province, there were no warriors who could train with Jiang Dudu. This was because Jiang Dudu was now a top-notch C-grade martial artist. If she went all out, even a B-grade martial artist might not be able to block her. Even dojo master Chen Yuan, an A-class martial artist, could not be a sparring partner. With his strength, he was naturally not afraid of Jiang Dudu's assassination attempt. But correspondingly, it would definitely hurt Jiang Dudu. Therefore, the only person who could train with Jiang Dudu was Jiang Xi. Because Jiang Xi had spiritual sense, he was not afraid of her assassination. He could accompany her in her training. Jiang Dudu was naturally very happy. The next day, she would train with Jiang Xi on the path of assassination. Jiang Xi seemed to be taking a stroll, leisurely strolling in Tongtian district. It was already night time, and there were many martial artists taking a stroll in the district. When they saw Jiang Xi, they all bowed respectfully to him. Jiang Xi also smiled and nodded in response. He did not show any arrogance. When he walked into a dense forest in the district, whoosh! A cold light suddenly attacked from the darkness without any warning. Jiang Xi's response was very simple. He just raised his hand and pinched the dagger in the cold light with 2 fingers. Can't you pretend for a while? Jiang Dudu appeared from the darkness in a tight black suit. Training is not child's play. The path of assassination lies in being cautious and in the blink of an eye. If I am not strict with you now and make you overconfident in your strength, it will be too late to regret if you encounter a dangerous situation in the future. Jiang Xi was very serious. All right then, Jiang Dudu muttered. In summary, you have already integrated into the environment, but you are not good at using the environment. For example, there was a gust of wind just now. You could have used that wind to hide the fluctuations of your aura when you attacked and increase your speed at the same time. Jiang Xi analyzed seriously. Jiang Dudu also listened seriously. After the analysis, Jiang Xi smiled again. You have improved a lot during this time. At the very least, a B-class martial artist has a very small chance of surviving your assassination. If an A-class martial artist is not prepared, they may also be injured by you. Jiang Dudu was beaming with joy. Her strength had finally improved a lot. Of course, it was mainly because she had received Jiang Xi's praise. All right, today's training. Before Jiang Xi could finish his words, his tactical communications watch suddenly vibrated. This was the frequency of vibration when there was an emergency. He quickly answered the call. Jiang Xi, hurry to Shushan Prefecture. Something big has happened. Xian Tian's low voice came through. Listening to his tone, the situation seemed to be very serious. What is it? The legendary Fengdu Mountain has suddenly opened. Fengdu Mountain. Jiang Xi was shocked. This name had an extraordinary meaning in the myths and legends of Dacia. It was the location of the mythical underworld. Hurry over as fast as you can. I am already on my way. Xian Tian hung up the call. Jiang Xi's expression also became serious. It was indeed a big matter. Brother, Fengdu? Is it Fengdu Ghost City in Shushan Prefecture? Jiang Dudu was very interested. After all, it involved her field of expertise. She grew up watching ghost movies and had long heard of Fengdu Ghost City. This Fengdu is not Fengdu. It is Fengdu Mountain, the location of the mythical underworld. Jiang Xi shook his head and said, the situation is urgent. I have to go. Jiang Dudu did not willfully stop him because she knew that Jiang Xi's identity was different from the past. He had some responsibilities. Don't forget to catch 2 ghosts for me. Jiang Dudu did not forget to remind him. It would have been better if she did not mention it. With this reminder, Jiang Xi instantly reacted. I am going to the underworld. The thing he was most afraid of in his life was ghost. However, at this moment, he did not have much time to think. After returning home to retrieve his weapons and equipment, he directly flew into the sky under the night sky and flew toward Shushan Prefecture. Jiang Dudu looked at Jiang Xi flying away with a worried expression. Of course, she also knew that Jiang Xi was most afraid of ghosts. She was very worried that if he really encountered a ghost, Jiang Xi would be scared out of his wits. From Pakistan province to Shushan Prefecture, it was more than 1,000 kilometers. Jiang Xi flew at a high speed all the way. In terms of speed, compared to half a year ago, it had increased by 20 to 30%. In less than 10 minutes, he was close to Shushan Prefecture. Far away, hundreds of kilometers away, Jiang Xi saw a scene that surprised him. He saw a beam of light converging from the two moons in the sky and directly shining on the mountains. The coldness emitted by the beam of light was very different from the usual soft moonlight. At the same time, several transport planes also rushed from all directions to the place where the beam of light converged. Jiang Xi quickly flew over and found that many people had already arrived. Xian Tian and He Tu came from Zhenten Buden. Other people who came were Li Bai, Huang Kuan, and Liu Rong, the three cultivators of the spirit gathering stage. As for the remaining two people, Jiang Xi did not know them. But looking at their strength, they were also in the spirit gathering stage. Including him, there were a total of 8 spirit gathering cultivators. Chapter 179. The place where everyone gathered was not far from the pillar of light formed by the moonlight. Looking closer, one could clearly see that the huge pillar of light had enveloped an inconspicuous small mountain. The small mountain was currently emitting an extremely gloomy aura. It was as if the gloominess was about to break through the mountain and spread between heaven and earth. When Xian Tian saw that Jiang Xi had arrived, he quickly introduced them to him. Jiang Xi, these two are Shu Lun, a spirit vessel expert from the Shujiao Prefecture, and Han Wenju, a spirit vessel expert from the Han family of Pakistan province. The situation is urgent, so I won't introduce them further. Let Shu Lun bring us over. Shu Lun and Han Wenju, both of them were experts from the reclusive families. They and Jiang Xi looked at each other and nodded slightly. Jiang Xi's gaze lingered on Shu Lun for a while. Like him, Shu Lun also carried a long sword on his back. He had heard of this person before. He was an expert ranked in the top 10 of the world's martial arts experts list. The other elder with a kind face, Han Wenju, should be the expert of the Han family of Pakistan province. Although he had never heard of this name before, Han Wenju's strength was not weak. The strength of the spiritual power he emitted was similar to Shu Lun's. They were both at the mid-stage of the spirit vessel realm. Jiang Xi sighed. The reclusive families were indeed not weak. At the very least, they had a spirit vessel expert. Everyone, please follow me. Shu Lun led the way with a solemn expression. At the same time, he explained to everyone what had happened. Half an hour ago, our Shujiao's compass vibrated abnormally. Then, I followed the compass's guidance and discovered the situation here. This pillar of moonlight and the gloominess seeping out of the mountain are almost the same as the Fengju mountain recorded in the Shujiao's ancient books. Only in terms of scale, it is far from the legendary Fengju mountain. Because Fengju mountain is the entrance to the Fengju mystic realm, this matter is of great importance. Therefore, I quickly invited everyone here to investigate and prevent anything from affecting the Da Xia kingdom. Everyone nodded, understanding Shu Lun's actions. In the spirit qi recovery era, anything related to myths and legends could not be underestimated. As a reclusive family, the Shujiao actually had an important mission all these years, which was to guard the Fengju mystic realm. Fengju mountain was rumored to be the location of the netherworld, but since ancient times, no one knew if the netherworld really existed. Therefore, everyone usually called it the Fengju mystic realm instead of the netherworld. However, the Shujiao's mission of guarding the Fengju mystic realm had never been carried out. This was because even the Shujiao didn't know where the entrance to the Fengju mystic realm was. This was also the first time they had discovered Fengju mountain. After approaching the ordinary mountain, Jiang Xi was a little surprised. He vaguely felt a sense of familiarity. However, he couldn't remember what it was that made him feel familiar. When Shu Lun brought them closer to the cave under the hill, the sense of familiarity became even clearer. Ghastly. Yes, that's the feeling. Jiang Xi remembered. Half a year ago, when he went to the Ma family to cause trouble, Huzhen used Ma Yu's blood to awaken the Ma family's ancestor. At that time, the aura emitted from the ground was very similar to this. However, the ghastly aura here was denser, as if it was about to condense into water. Those who were slightly weaker would easily suffocate in such an environment. Everyone followed the cave that led underground and soon arrived at the stone cave. The scene in front of them shocked everyone. One of the stone walls of the stone cave had been completely blurred, turning into a deep space door that connected to an unknown space. It was like a giant abyss that swallowed all things. It was frightening. The ghastly aura was emitted from the space door. It went without saying where this space door led to. The entrance to the Fengju mystic realm, Xian Tian and Shu Lun said almost at the same time. Everyone looked at each other and didn't enter rashly. At this time, facing such a place of ghosts and gods in myths and legends, no matter how strong they were, a chill rose in their hearts. Xian Tian asked Shu Lun, "Can you close this door from the outside?" "I don't have that ability. I can only go in and take a look." Shu Lun shook his head. At this moment, Han Wenju suddenly said, "Someone has been here." Someone had been here. Everyone's expressions immediately became serious. Then this matter was not a sudden natural phenomenon. It was opened by someone. Han Wenju was good at tracking and investigation. This was also one of the reasons why he rushed here. The other reason was very simple. Because he and Shu Jiao were connected by marriage, his wife was Shu Lun's sister. "About how many people?" Xian Tian asked. "About 15 people. 15 people. Everyone was shocked again. This matter was very serious. "I have a discovery," Jiang Xi suddenly said. Everyone's gaze focused on him. "Half a year ago, I felt a similar ghastly aura in the Ma family." River Word gave a simple account of the situation when he fought with that formless palm print. At that time, only he, White Cloud, and Qin Chi knew about the scene. However, this time, White Cloud and Qin Chi did not come. Shu Lun's expression was very serious. He said, "I have a rough idea of what Jiang Xi is talking about. It involves some secrets of the reclusive families. I hope that everyone can keep it a secret after hearing it." Seeing that everyone nodded, he continued, "The reclusive families each have their own inheritance. For example, the Shu Jiao and the Ma family of Chang'an are both different. The Shu Jiao's inheritance is to catch ghosts, while the Ma family's inheritance is to control corpses. In fact, the Ma family lived in this mountain a long time ago. However, for some reason, they moved to Chang'an. The ghastly aura that Jiang Xi mentioned should be coming from zombies. Catching ghost. Controlling corpses. Everyone was shocked. This was indeed a secret. There's another situation. I suspect that the head of the Ma family, Ma Jinhai, may be related to the Liberal Alliance. Jiang Xi said again. "Is this true?" Shu Lun's expression changed. "I can testify to this. Our Genten Buden and the Qin family of Shuntian Prefecture have been investigating Ma Jinhai for half a year. Although we have not found any concrete evidence, various signs indicate that there is some kind of connection between him and the Liberal Alliance," Xian Tian said. Shu Lun's expression was complicated. He shook his head and said, "Then this matter is basically clear. Besides our Shu Jiao, the Ma family also knows about the secrets of Fengju Mountain. Since Ma Jinhai is related to the Liberal Alliance, this time, he and the Liberal Alliance must be behind it. This was a very important piece of information. Once the truth of this incident was confirmed, everyone would be able to be on guard. Otherwise, if they did not know that it was the Liberal Alliance's doing, they might be ambushed after entering. No matter what, we have to go in. This is our Shu Jiao's ancestral soul-subduing talisman. Take one with you. In case you really encounter a ghost, it may be useful." Shu Lun took out a stack of exquisite talismans and distributed them to everyone. After Jiang Xi took it, he hesitated and said, Can you give me a few more? One is enough to drive away ghosts and ward off evil. Besides, I don't know if this thing is useful." After all, I have never seen a ghost. Shu Lun was puzzled. However, he still smiled and gave the rest of the talismans to Jiang Xi. Thank you. Jiang Xi thanked him sincerely. He asked for so many just for peace of mind. What if it worked? Speaking of which, he was still a little apprehensive. He was most afraid of ghosts in his life. Subsequently, the group of 8 people, with Shen Tian and Shu Lun in the lead, stepped into the deep and dark spatial door and disappeared. Chapter 180. The deep space door had a mysterious teleportation power. Jiang Xi and the others only felt a change in space before they entered the Fengju secret realm. This was a dark world. It was vast and boundless, and grey fog filled the air everywhere. The scene in front of them made their expressions change drastically. They were shocked. Looking up, he saw a bare black mountain standing between the heavens and the earth. This mountain occupied a large area, and they couldn't see the end. It was like a wall that separated the world. This mountain was extremely tall, as if it had pierced through the sky. There seemed to be raging flames burning at the top, bringing some light to this world. Shu Lun suddenly exclaimed, "Could this be the real Fengju mountain?" The mountain is 2,600 miles high and has a circumference of 30,000 miles. There are also palaces of ghosts and deities. Everyone followed his words and observed the black mountain in front of them. Sure enough, they could vaguely see that there were a few palaces built on the mountain from top to bottom. The palace at the bottom was right in front of them, at the foot of the black mountain. "Let's go and take a look," Shen Tian said in a deep voice. The 8 of them immediately ran toward the palace in front of them. It looked close, but the journey was not short. After walking for hundreds of miles, they still hadn't reached the foot of the mountain. It could be seen how big this mountain was. Those people from the Liberal Alliance passed by here not long ago. Han Wenju reminded them. He had found new traces. Shen Tian nodded and said, "Everyone must be careful." They were already very careful. With their strength, they could actually walk 100 miles in a few breaths. But now, their speed had never exceeded the speed of sound. Be careful. Jiang Xi also maintained his usual habit of constantly observing the surroundings. He realized that the terrain of this world was very simple. Other than the black mountain in front of them, there was only an endless wasteland. There was not a single living creature, not even a ghost. This discovery made Jiang Xi slightly relieved. It seemed that the Fengju secret realm should be similar to the Jade Lake secret realm. It had been abandoned for many years. After a while, everyone finally got close to the palace at the foot of the mountain. It turned out that this palace was very big. It was 1,000 meters high and close to 10,000 meters wide. Who is living in such a huge palace? Everyone was puzzled. They turned to look at a huge stone tablet in front of the palace. There were black words carved on it. Jiang Xi discovered that the structure of these characters was somewhat similar to the characters in the Jade Lake mystic realm. It was as if they came from the same era, but there were also differences. As for the specific differences, he couldn't pinpoint them. However, the meaning of these words was clearly conveyed to everyone's minds. Fengju Mountain, Absolute Heaven Palace. Everyone still didn't rush in rashly, nor did they get too close. Instead, they observed their surroundings to see if there was any other way up the mountain. It was the same principle as not entering a forest or crossing a river. This palace was filled with a strange aura. "There's a river at the foot of the mountain." Li Baibai made a new discovery. Everyone hurriedly rushed over, their expressions filled with shock. How was this a river? It was somewhat similar to the legendary Yellow Spring, but the river water was black, as if it was condensed from baleful aura. There were also eerie white bones floating in it. This made everyone feel waves of alarm, as if they fell down, their flesh would melt away, turning into white bones. Whoosh! Shen Tian picked up a 10,000-ton boulder and threw it out. The boulder instantly arrived above the Black River, but before the boulder could fall, a strange force appeared, and the boulder quickly weathered at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then disappeared without a trace. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. "It seems that we can only pass through that palace," Xian Tian shook his head. This was because the source of this black river was unknown. It flowed along the foot of Fengdu Mountain, majestically flowing into the distance. It spanned across the land, separating this wasteland from Fengdu Mountain. If they wanted to enter Fengdu Mountain, they could either cross the river or pass through the palace called Absolute Heaven Palace. Compared to the Black River, Absolute Heaven Palace looked safer. They walked to the front of Absolute Heaven Palace. This time, everyone discovered that part of this magnificent palace was suspended in the air above the Black River. In the middle of the palace gate, there was a wide straight path that led straight to the depths of the palace, just crossing the Black River. This straight path looked abnormally new, as if no one had stepped on it before. If I'm not wrong, this should be the ghost path. Legend has it that before ghosts reincarnate, they have to walk on this path. Shu Lun's words were shocking. Ghost path? Isn't it the Yellow Spring or the Bridge of Helplessness? Jiang Xi was puzzled. The others also looked at Shu Lun with the same doubts. Myths and legends are true and false, who knows which is true? However, Fengdu Mountain's ghost path is before the legends of the Yellow Spring and the Bridge of Helplessness. These are recorded in the ancient books of our Shu Jia. Shu Lun said. He then exhorted, in short, after stepping on the ghost path, be sure to stick the soul-subduing talisman that I gave you. Everyone did as they were told. After all, Shu Lun was the expert here. Jiang Xi, one is enough. Shu Lun said in surprise. Stick a few more for insurance. Jiang Xi did not raise his head as he stuck the soul-subduing talisman all over his body. Shoulders, arms, thighs, chest, back. Okay, let's go. Jiang Xi looked at the soul-subduing talisman all over his body and felt relieved. The others looked at the lone soul-subduing talisman on their bodies and suddenly felt as if something was missing. They wanted to say, aren't you exaggerating? Then, the 8 of them stepped on the ghost path and felt very strange. They seemed to have suddenly become much smaller. Compared to the wide ghost path, they seemed very small. Whoosh! Gusts of cold wind blew from nowhere as if it was blowing at their souls. A bone-chilling chill rose from their hearts. Their hair stood on end. Buzz, the soul-subduing talisman on their bodies trembled slightly and began to emit a golden glow. It was very warm and directly dispelled the chill. At this moment, Jiang Xi was a little eye-catching. The others only had one spot on their bodies shining, but his entire body was emitting a golden glow. However, this was not the focus of everyone's attention. Everyone's expression was very solemn and cautious. It's working. There really are ghosts. Shu Lun's eyes widened as he looked around. Jiang Xi also reacted. The soul-subduing talisman was working. What did that mean? There really were ghosts. The gusts of cold wind just now, perhaps they were ghosts. He could not help but shudder, and his hair stood on end. What the fuck? Can I retreat now? Sob sob sob, faint sobbing sounds rang out around the crowd. It seemed to have a mesmerizing effect, and one could not help but feel pity for them. Get lost. Xian Tian suddenly shouted angrily. The aura of his entire body erupted, and the shocking true meaning of saber spread out in an instant. Wah wah wah. Suddenly, the things around them seemed to be frightened. The terrified whales were incomparably terrifying. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.